a certain Superman in Marvel. Welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction, so please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story in all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter, and if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. Chapter 76, Improved Zombie Virus. Joshua remembered that the ultimate weapon to end these zombies was a combination of healing nanobots and Sandman, created by Iron Man in another universe. Because the nanobots mistake zombie bodies for damaged parts, they would completely eliminate them, and then the zombies would be completely devoured. The Iron Man in this alternate universe was an alcoholic, unable to fight due to his intoxication. Pepper Potts was devoured by the zombies, and so was he. In the end, only Rhodes was left, becoming the second Iron Man. However, Rhodes was incredibly fierce. Whenever a zombie bit him, he would cut off the bitten part, leaving only a small amount of human remains, the rest transformed into machines. He became the last living person in this alternate universe, and in the end, he used his human body to track all the zombie heroes for the final battle. It was a tragic fate, and every universe invaded by the zombie virus suffered greatly. However, the last zombie sentinel, possessing the power of 1,000,000 stellar explosions, was thrown by the observer into the original zombie universe. Thus, the zombie virus, which spread across several universes, began a cycle of reincarnation. Joshua considered it a waste that everyone in these universes had died. His gaze fell on a young girl being tackled and devoured by a silver-haired zombie. Joshua watched silently. This was just a cycle, meaning she'd been devoured countless times, reincarnated countless times. Saving her now wouldn't solve the problem. He needed to create an antidote to eliminate the zombie virus at the start of the next cycle. Only then would the problem be resolved fundamentally and everyone could survive. Joshua looked at the silver-haired woman devouring the girl. If he was right, it must be Black Cat, a woman named Felicia Hardy. Zombie Gwen, sensing the approach of other zombies, stood over Joshua and said, "I know her, Hulk, hungry. Hulk's going to eat you." The Hulk continued to howl with only its head left. Joshua, finding it annoying, raised his foot and kicked the Hulk's head away. Damn it. Suddenly, he felt a little relieved. Joshua rubbed his chin. He knew the zombie virus was, in a sense, an evolution of humanity, but its drawbacks were equally obvious. It caused hunger, forcing infected individuals to devour flesh and blood. He tried retaining the zombie's ability to enhance humans while modifying the hunger-inducing effect, but it proved unstable. The modified zombie virus quickly mutated. He needed to continue his research. Joshua turned back to his research, surrounded by a vast array of instruments. The Black Cat devoured the human in less than a minute. The brief feeling of fullness brought her back to her senses. She looked towards Zombie Gwen and Joshua. "Hey, Gwen," the Black Cat said as she approached Zombie Gwen. She caught Joshua's scent. It was fragrant. He must taste even better than the others. "Don't come any closer," Zombie Gwen said, bracing herself for battle, her gaze warily fixed on the Black Cat. "What are you talking about? Aren't we friends?" Black Cat's speed increased, her gaze fixed on Joshua. Finally, she broke into a frenzy, a roar emanating from her lips. "Food! Food! Flesh! Eat him!" The zombie Black Cat's mouth drooled profusely as she lunged at Joshua. She looked utterly frantic. "No, I won't let you hurt him." Zombie Gwen tackled the zombie Black Cat, and the two engaged in a struggle. The zombie Black Cat's hands couldn't penetrate the armor Joshua had placed on her. But Zombie Gwen was equally ferocious, attacking the zombie Black Cat frantically. Gwen, are you crazy?" the zombie Black Cat roared. She couldn't break through the armor, yet her attacks were real. It was so unfair. "He hopes to end this hellish world, so I won't let you get close to him." Zombie Gwen grabbed the zombie Black Cat and slammed it to the ground. The zombie Black Cat, overcome by hunger, roared, "But I'm hungry." Then, she bit down on Zombie Gwen. Zombie Gwen picked up a sharp piece of steel from the ground and instantly impaled the zombie Black Cat. The zombie Black Cat roared, but such an attack wasn't enough to kill her. Zombie Gwen didn't want to kill the zombie Black Cat. After all, Joshua had hope of healing them. Zombie Gwen pinned the zombie Black Cat to the ground, then picked up more steel and pierced its limbs, pinning it to the ground. Unable to move its limbs, the zombie black cat could only roar and curse. Zombie Gwen didn't give in. She found another piece of steel and stabbed it through its mouth. The zombie black cat could only grunt. After this, Zombie Gwen felt hunger and couldn't help but move towards Joshua. A moment later, golden magic ribbons appeared from her armor and wrapped around Zombie Gwen. Zombie Gwen's mouth opened, saliva dripping from her mouth as she screamed, demanding food. The hunger pangs in her belly drove her mad. She roared like a wild animal. Joshua waited for the zombie virus to transform Zombie Gwen for a while before taking a little more. As long as it's working, it's good. After a while of improvement, it should be fine. Joshua continued working, then found a few more animals for Zombie Gwen to chew on. The zombie black cat couldn't stop drooling. She wanted to eat, too. After devouring half a deer, Zombie Gwen expressed her feelings to Joshua. Before, she would have consumed a whole deer before even feeling a little full, but now she was full with just half. Joshua was truly turning her into a human. It was still a long way off, but we just had to wait. It's already 2,000 average ratings. Honestly, I only wanted a little over 1,000. After all, I know my writing is terrible. How should I put it? I'm so grateful for everyone reading this book and not criticizing my writing. Faserpaming. More chapters. So I'm planning on adding more chapters. I don't know how much I can write in a day. By the way, please point out any typos. Sometimes my hand speed can't keep up with my brain and I'll make typos. I bow down. Chapter 77 Zombie Heroes. A green head streaked across the sky, flying hundreds of miles before crashing to the ground with a thud. The instant it hit, it created a massive crater and sent plumes of smoke billowing into the air. Zombie Captain America, shield in hand, stepped into the dust. He discovered a massive crater and the roaring head of the zombie Hulk. I want meat. Zombie Captain America grabbed the zombie Hulk's head and demanded, how did you become like this? Could anyone have done this to the zombie Hulk? The zombie Hulk's head roared, a human, an incredibly delicious human. He's far more delicious than any other human. He's a delicacy of the highest order. We can capture him and keep him captive. We'll eat a portion of his body, then use technology to heal him. Then, we'll have an endless supply of premium delicacies. Zombie Hulk was thrilled. Zombie Iron Man, Zombie Banner, and Zombie Mr. Fantastic were all incredibly intelligent, so they could surely use the black-haired human as a constant source of food. Saliva dripped from the corners of Zombie Captain America's mouth. He spoke, the delicious feast should be saved for last. Now we should go to Stark Tower for some dessert. Zombie Tony sent a message to lure some fools. Now we have to eat. Captain America ran, carrying the zombie Hulk's head. Flesh, Hulk wants flesh, Zombie Hulk roared frantically. Zombie Spider-Man also moved frantically, shooting webs. The zombie heroes advanced rapidly, their target all being Stark Tower. They were all going to feast there. Why is it so quiet? An agent beside Nick Fury said. Stark Tower was too quiet, so quiet it was eerie. Blood smeared the interior of Stark Tower, and every few steps there was a pool of blood. The scene made everyone extremely nervous. Nick Fury said, we have to get the space travel device, otherwise we will die. The zombies will not let us go. The others knew this too, and everyone was on high alert. At the same time, on a screen, Zombie Iron Man laughed. Haha, they've been fooled. Zombie Iron Man hadn't yet completed his device for traveling across the universe. He was just a little hungry, so he spread the false news, telling these people to come. This was a feast of fresh flesh and blood, and it was free. Zombie Iron Man had already deployed countless robots here, robots that Magneto couldn't control. Once these people reached a point where they had no way to retreat, they would be attacked. Then, these zombies would have a huge supply of food. Zombie Mr. Fantastic wiped his saliva from the corner of his mouth and said, Tony. After a good meal, we'll get back to work. After all, there are other universes waiting for us to feast on. Zombie Iron Man nodded. Food. Food. Food, Zombie Invisible Woman cried impatiently, drool gushing. Every zombie is very smart. Magneto sensed something was amiss. He said, I sense something is amiss. As soon as he finished speaking, a dense swarm of robots flew out from every corner, unleashing laser cannons to attack them. Magneto winced and attempted to control the robots with magnetism, but the next moment, he discovered they were unaffected. A melee ensued. Wolverine, relying on his immense healing abilities, fought back, and the others followed suit. They were all superheroes, after all. Scarlet Witch used her energy to pulverize several robots, but the next moment, an arm pierced her. It was the Invisible Woman. She bit into Scarlet Witch's neck. Ah! Scarlet Witch drooled as she looked at the man. She opened her mouth and suddenly roared. The man tried to retreat, but the red energy grabbed him. With a slight effort, Scarlet Witch tore him in two, blood splattering everywhere. Bathed in blood, Scarlet Witch was completely transformed into a zombie. A zombie hero was born. More and more superheroes became zombies, but in the end, Magneto rushed to the device that Zombie Stark hadn't yet completed to travel across the universe, determined to destroy it. He lost count of how many zombies he had killed. He felt exhausted. This world was beyond saving, but at least he couldn't let them go to another universe. He slowly sat down on the ground, gazing at the crowd of zombie heroes. There was no fear, only relief. He said, "Come on." In an instant, all the zombies rushed over, and Magneto was overwhelmed. The street became much quieter. A man hid in a supermarket, carefully eating his food. There was enough for him to eat for a long time, and as long as he stayed hidden, he wouldn't be discovered by the zombies. The man tore into the bread and ate. He needed to plan how to consume the food, otherwise he would be starving. But these zombies were truly foolish, completely unaware of him. He hoped they would die soon. He ate carefully. There was enough food here to last him for a long time, so for now, he wasn't worried. He just needed to stay hidden. Meanwhile, on the rooftop of the supermarket, Zombie Peter was writing something in a small notebook. He needed to get the other woman in hiding here and have them reproduce, otherwise there would be no food. Zombie Peter put the notebook away. The man in the supermarket had no idea he had already been discovered and was being raised by Zombie Peter. Joshua looked at Zombie Gwen and said, "This 1000th modified zombie virus should continue to reduce your hunger, but it might reduce your strength a little." Zombie Gwen said, "I want to become human again." Joshua nodded and injected the modified zombie virus into Zombie Gwen. Zombie Gwen suddenly roared, but the roar lasted only a few minutes before stopping. Feeling her body, she said, "My hunger has subsided again." This filled her with joy. She looked at Joshua and suddenly felt that the young man before her was powerful and charming. But the next moment, hunger returned, and at that moment, she felt that Joshua was food. Chapter 78: The Zombie Hero's Plan. After Zombie Gwen's third injection of the modified zombie virus, her hunger subsided considerably. She felt she had more control over herself, so she said, "I think I can control myself." Joshua snapped his fingers, and the armor on Zombie Gwen quickly vanished. Zombie Gwen stretched herself, her gaze fixed on the zombie black cat, whom she had previously pinned to the ground. She asked, "Can you give her the modified zombie virus?" After all, they were friends. Black tentacles suddenly emerged from Joshua's body, grasping a syringe and injecting the modified zombie virus into Black Cat. Zombie Black Cat continued to roar, the modified zombie virus infecting her, making her feel very uncomfortable. But the roars soon ceased. Zombie Gwen also removed the steel bars. Zombie Black Cat lay on the ground for a while, her wounds gradually healing. This was the new zombie virus Joshua had combined with Hulk's blood, but it still made her feel hungry. It wasn't enough. The zombie Black Cat waited for its wounds to heal before speaking. "Wow, Gwen, you're really ruthless." Zombie Gwen, a bit embarrassed, said, "You looked really crazy before." "So, I know, Gwen," the zombie Black Cat said, then looked at Joshua and said, "Hello, you can call me Black Cat." "Hello, my name is Joshua Parker," Joshua said. "Parker? You and Spider-Man have the same last name?" The zombie Black Cat walked up to Joshua, examining him curiously. "Yes," Joshua said, looking at the zombie Black Cat. "I have work to do. You and Gwen can hang out." The zombie Black Cat nodded and pulled away. She walked over to Zombie Gwen and asked, "How did you meet this handsome guy?" Zombie Gwen told her story of meeting Joshua. The zombie Black Cat looked at Joshua. From what Zombie Gwen said, it was clear that Joshua wasn't from this earth. He could be an alien, or perhaps from another universe. The zombie Black Cat's stomach suddenly growled. She glanced at a carcass nearby and said, "Can I have some?" Zombie Gwen nodded. "Gwen, you're so generous." The zombie Black Cat immediately went over to gnaw on the carcass. She ate frantically, but after noticing Joshua's thoughtful look, she softened a bit, though only a little. Zombie Gwen swallowed, watching the zombie black cat devour her food. She felt a little hungry, too. She then joined the zombie black cat in eating. Joshua watched the two zombies devouring the animals. Back when he was a normal person, he'd often imagined encountering zombies, infecting the entire school, and then embarking on his own zombie apocalypse survival game. Now, even though he'd encountered zombies, they couldn't even penetrate his defenses. It felt less exciting. Zombie Black Cat looked at Zombie Gwen and muttered, "Is he interested in us? Why is he staring at us? He's probably observing us. I don't think he'd have any special thoughts about us after seeing what we did just now." Zombie Gwen felt uglier when she recalled her own ferocious appearance. She didn't think Joshua would have any special thoughts about them. Some people have quirks. Maybe he's one of them, Zombie Black Cat muttered. Stark Tower. Zombie Stark spoke. Hulk said he met a human, a very delicious human. But it's clear this human is also very powerful. After all, he tore Hulk's limbs off and kicked his head off. So we need to prepare to fight this human. But now we need to go to Wakanda to find enough vibranium and improve our strength. Oh. And the zombies only need us. Zombie villains shouldn't exist. After we upgrade our equipment, we need to eliminate all the zombie villains. Otherwise, they'll steal our food, Zombie Stark said to the zombie heroes before him. The zombies all nodded. Then they sprang into action, their execution prowess strong. Meanwhile, Zombie Ant-Man stealthily returned to his basement, closing the door behind him. His gaze fell on a restrained man. Ha ha ha, the smell of flesh and blood. Zombie Ant-Man chopped off the man's arm and began gnawing on it. The scene looked incredibly brutal. Oh, I can't eat it all in one sitting. Zombie Ant-Man stopped eating and looked at the man, saying, "Black Panther, are you okay?" The man was speechless from the excruciating pain, his eyes fixed on the ceiling with despair. Not long ago, during a zombie outbreak, he and Ant-Man had gone to help, but Ant-Man had been injured by a zombie and infected. Ant-Man had knocked him unconscious just before he was about to transform into a zombie, and had since imprisoned him here, using him as backup food. It was a horrific torture. Zombie Ant-Man gave Black Panther some food and water, then said, "I have to leave." Zombie Ant-Man cautiously left the basement. "Are you okay?" the man who had been hiding in the supermarket said, looking at the woman before him. Although the woman wasn't particularly pretty, she had a nice figure, with an incredibly perky butt. The man swallowed hard. The woman noticed the man's appearance and, though somewhat disgusted, didn't refuse. She needed someone to lean on right now. "It's okay. The zombie Spider-Man didn't realize I'd escaped to here," she said. The man then said, "These zombies are stupid. They never realized I was here." The woman nodded. Zombie Spider-Man did seem a bit foolish, unable to catch her. The man gradually approached the woman. Meanwhile, Zombie Peter, watching the surveillance footage on his phone, saw the man and woman approach and embrace. It seemed the plan had succeeded. Zombie Peter grabbed a leg and began to gnaw on it. The zombie hero was eating too much? At this rate, the entire world would soon be devoured, so he had to take precautions. He agreed with Zombie Stark's earlier suggestion of dealing with the zombie villains, and he also hoped that more zombie heroes would die so he could have more flesh to eat. He quickly ate the thigh in his hand, and left here swinging on the spider silk. The black-haired human boy mentioned by Zombie Hulk before made him very concerned. Chapter 79 Observer. Joshua said, "Hey, the new zombie virus is ready." Joshua's voice made Zombie Black Cat and Zombie Gwen look up at him. They quickly came to his side. Joshua injected the new zombie virus into the two zombies. Zombie Gwen felt much less pain this time. Zombie Black Cat asked, "Can we become human this time?" It might be different from before. You'll become stronger and be able to control your cravings. You'll become a zombie with complete self-control," Joshua said. After all, a modified zombie virus is still a zombie virus. Zombie Black Cat said, "Is that so?" If possible, she wanted to become completely human. Joshua thought for a moment and said, "Giving birth to these babies is possible, but they'll be zombie babies. And, by the way, they won't be able to infect people anymore, and their bites won't turn them into zombies." Zombie Black Cat felt that they were no different from humans. Zombie Gwen looked at Joshua. She was indeed able to control herself. "Do you want to release the new zombie virus?" the Zombie Black Cat continued. "No, not now. If we do, we won't be able to complete the reincarnation cycle. We have to release it before the zombie virus breaks out, Joshua said. However, Zombie Gwen and the others didn't know about reincarnation. Zombie Gwen couldn't help but ask, release it before the zombie virus breaks out? You can travel through time, I can, but I'm not the one releasing it, Joshua said, looking up at the sky. Take it. You can use it in the next reincarnation, Zombie Black Cat couldn't help but exclaim. Someone, Zombie Gwen was also confused. Why would Joshua speak to the sky? The next second, the sky gradually revealed the figure of a bald man. He was the observer. He originally didn't intend to interfere with reality, but the zombie universe proved too dangerous, threatening them and countless other universes. They had no choice but to create a reincarnation cycle to prevent the zombies from spreading. Now, they just had to wait for the next reincarnation to begin and release Joshua's new zombie virus. There would be no more danger. The observer took the new zombie virus and said, "Thank you, I'm also here for the power of faith," Joshua said. Zombie Gwen and Zombie Black Cat stared at the enormous observer, their eyes widening before they exchanged a look of bewilderment. The observer soon left. Zombie Gwen looked at Joshua and said, "If we started all over again, would we still remember you?" "No, after all, we've already started all over again," Joshua said. Zombie Gwen and Zombie Black Cat wouldn't remember a thing. Zombie Gwen glanced at Joshua but said nothing. Zombie Black Cat whispered in Zombie Gwen's ear, "If you don't take the initiative, you might never get another chance." Zombie Gwen simply smiled and said, "That's good. I won't remember anything anyway." "That's good." Joshua looked at Zombie Gwen and Zombie Black Cat and said, "I have to leave." Zombie Gwen waved, "Goodbye," and Zombie Black Cat blew him a kiss. Joshua took to the sky. He had long-haired Gwen's gem. Now, let's see what these zombie heroes would do. Joshua soared through the air, not very fast. Suddenly, a whistling sound was heard. Joshua stopped as a missile hurtled towards him. He grabbed the missile with his hand, then saw Stark's words. Were these zombie heroes going to eat him? Suddenly, someone flew over. It was the zombie Scarlet Witch. "Food!" the zombie Scarlet Witch roared. Flying towards Joshua. Crimson energy gathered in her palms, grabbing Joshua and trying to tear him apart. With a slight effort, Joshua broke free from the zombie Scarlet Witch's restraints. He exhaled lightly, and his freezing breath instantly froze the zombie Scarlet Witch. The frozen Scarlet Witch then plummeted to the ground. Joshua also slowly descended. He saw a large number of zombie heroes, all staring at him, as if waiting for him. Joshua floated in the air and said, "You want to eat me?" The zombie Hulk, now with only his head remaining, merged with the Hulkbuster armor and roared, "I'm going to eat you." Then, the zombie Hulk leaped at Joshua. Fighting like this doesn't seem very interesting. The symbiote within Joshua transformed into a hammer, sending the zombie Hulk flying. Joshua enlarged his spaceship and flew into the cockpit. This was a fair match, otherwise, a single breath of his could wipe out the zombie heroes. Joshua found the battle between the zombie heroes in his mech quite fascinating, like playing a realistic mech game. "Are you still there?" Zombie Gwen said, moving from where Joshua had spoken to the observer. The observer silently watched Zombie Gwen, thinking about the new zombie virus Joshua had created. Zombie Gwen was a favor, so Joshua had to give her some respect. The observer slowly appeared and looked at Zombie Gwen. "What do you want? Can I keep my memories?" Zombie Gwen asked. The observer, knowing what Zombie Gwen was thinking, said, "There's a huge gap between you two, and he's probably already chosen a partner." Zombie Gwen suddenly felt a pang of pain in her heart. "Who is it?" "It's you, the you in his universe," the observer said. Zombie Black Cat looked at Zombie Gwen and said, "No wonder he's helping us." Zombie Gwen couldn't help but ask, "Another me?" "Yes, the high school version of you. But I'm not sure. His mind is hard to fathom, and I don't think keeping his memories is a good idea," the observer said. Zombie Gwen didn't know what she was thinking. After a while, she said, "I want to keep my memory." "Okay, I get it. You will remember all this in your next reincarnation," the observer said. Although this Zombie Gwen had little to do with Joshua, she was Gwen after all, so Joshua's factor had to be considered more or less. Zombie Gwen looked at the observer very seriously and said, "Thank you." The observer left quickly. Zombie Black Cat said, "So many terrible memories can be forgotten, but you insist on remembering them." Zombie Gwen thought for a while and said, "They are not all bad memories. Aren't you curious about what other universes are like? These are too far away from me." I just want to steal more things and exchange them for money tomorrow, the zombie black cat said. There's still one chapter. Chapter 80 versus Zombie Hero. Joshua, in his mech, collided with a zombie Ant-Man, enlarged using PIM particles. Bang! With a resounding roar, zombie Ant-Man collapsed, while Joshua's mech remained unshaken. Zombie Iron Man, standing at a distance, unleashed an energy attack, but Joshua's mech unleashed an orange energy blast that sent zombie Iron Man flying. Zombie Iron Man's body slammed into the ground, creating a crack. He shook his head and stood up, examining his mech, which had been dented. This human was incredibly powerful, their mech technology far surpassing even his own. Zombie Iron Man figured they couldn't defeat him. So, let's start collecting data and settle the score with this human later. Zombie Iron Man stopped fighting, silently collecting data from the sidelines. The battle was one-sided, with even the more powerful Zombie Thor being beaten by Joshua's mech. However, Zombie Thor's tough skin made him quite resilient. Nearby, Zombie Peter attempted to fire Spider Silk, but found himself out of it. Reflexively, he released another, and the next second, a disgusting burst of red and blue energy shot forth, catching Joshua's armor. Zombie Peter was stunned. He could actually fire energy? Just as he was stunned, Joshua pulled Zombie Peter in front of him. Joshua punched him, sending him flying. Joshua remembered that this Zombie Peter would later travel to another universe. Zombie Peter soon battled a supervillain from that other universe. During the battle, Zombie Peter developed an appetite and devoured all the villains except the Sandman. However, these ravaged villains transformed into zombies, and he proceeded to tear apart the alternate universe's Mary Jane. Witnessing Mary Jane's tragic death once again, Zombie Peter suffered a mental breakdown, and in a frenzy, he brutally slaughtered every nearby zombie. He then tore off his own skin and threw it in the trash, his will triumphing over his hunger. Later, Zombie Peter would become a crucial figure in stopping the spread of the zombies. However, the current Zombie Peter didn't have the same strong willpower he would later possess. Hulk is hungry. Hulk wants to eat you. Zombie Hulk, piloting a Hulkbuster armor, rushed toward Joshua, who flew the mech and knocked the Zombie Hulk away. The battle continued. Stark Tower. Numerous zombies gathered, all wounded. Zombie Captain America even tore a piece of flesh from his body and threw it into his mouth. Ugh, this tastes so fucking disgusting. Zombie Captain America spat out his own flesh. He had been beaten so badly by Joshua that half his brain was shattered, but even then, he survived. He reached out and scratched his head, then said, "We can't possibly win. Where did this guy come from? Why is he so strong?" Zombie Stark said, "We need more powerful weapons." The zombies began to chatter. A few minutes later, Zombie Stark began crafting powerful weapons. He had conceived of this weapon long ago, so it should be ready soon. Zombie Peter hung upside down from the wall, staring at the ceiling. Visions of Aunt May and Mary Jane's tragic deaths resurfaced in his mind. He had meant to protect them, yet he had ended up killing them. Suddenly, a sense of unease struck him, and he crawled along the wall. Perched on the edge of Stark Tower, he gazed upon the empty, quiet city. The surrounding area had been largely devoured by the hordes, though there were still some captive humans. As Zombie Peter breathed in the breeze, he suddenly spotted Joshua. Could this guy be here to kill them? But if he was, why hadn't he done it before? And he wasn't in his mech? Zombie Peter suddenly saw this as an opportunity for a surprise attack. Just as he was about to act, he saw the zombie rhino burst out from the corner and charge fiercely at Joshua. Joshua didn't dodge, and Zombie Peter frowned. What else could this human be capable of? Just as he was thinking this, Joshua's eyes released a beam of light, which directly sliced the zombie rhino in half. The bisected zombie didn't die immediately. Its severed body attempted to crawl toward Joshua. Feeling somewhat unsettled, Joshua used his heat vision to completely destroy the zombie rhino, leaving no trace. Then, a giant lizardman approached Joshua. The zombie lizardman squinted at Joshua, sniffing and saying, "You smell delicious." Joshua looked at the zombie lizardman, knowing it was trying to attract his attention, as another zombie green goblin was poised to attack him. Joshua remained silent, clearly unwilling to engage. Sensing Joshua's slight impatience, the symbiote instantly emerged from Joshua's body. At over 2 meters tall, it looked almost identical to the zombie lizardman. It charged towards him. The zombie lizardman also rushed out, biting the symbiote with its fanged maw. The symbiote reacted with remarkable speed, having been strengthened by the 6 Infinity Stones. Its hand transformed into a sharp black knife and fiercely stabbed the zombie lizardman's body, but the attack was not over yet. The black knife that had penetrated the zombie lizardman suddenly sprouted barbs. The symbiote yanked it out, tearing out a large amount of flesh and blood in an instant. This would be fatal for an ordinary person, but not for the zombie lizardman. In the past, the zombie lizardman might have recovered through his own healing abilities, but now that he had become a zombie, these abilities had disappeared. The symbiote continued to swing the black knife, slicing the zombie lizardman into several pieces in a matter of moments. "Hey, you're mine." The zombie green goblin seized the opportunity and flew out. With the zombie lizardman dead, he could feast on this human's flesh and blood alone. Just when he was rejoicing, thousands of black spikes suddenly shot out from the symbiote, and then pierced the zombie green goblin who was approaching Joshua. "How dare you approach him?" The symbiote looked very angry. It walked in front of the zombie green goblin, then opened its mouth and bit off the zombie green goblin's head directly. It tastes so bad, the symbiote couldn't help but say after biting off the head. It quickly spit out the green goblin's head, and then crushed the zombie green goblin's head with one foot. Symbiote. Zombie Peter looked at Joshua with some surprise. He didn't expect that he actually had a symbiote in his body. Zombie Peter also had a symbiote before, but they had separated long ago. 10,000 words. See you tomorrow. Chapter 81. The Zombie's Frustration. After dispatching the zombie green goblin and the zombie lizard man, the other zombie villains who had been hiding stopped coming out. None of them wanted to die. This black-haired boy was clearly no pushover. If they tried to cause trouble, they'd probably be killed. Joshua pulled his hoverboard from his clothes and tossed it to the ground. It rapidly expanded, and Joshua stepped onto it. The symbiote quickly approached Joshua and merged with him. It preferred being inside Joshua to being outside. Joshua's gaze fell on zombie Peter, who looked back at him. Their eyes met. Joshua felt a sense of emotion. Even after becoming a zombie, Peter was still a hero in the end. In the end, zombie Peter was a powerful force against the zombie heroes. Sometimes, Joshua envied Peter. Joshua rode his hoverboard towards Stark Tower. "What's he going to do?" Zombie Captain America asked, scratching his head. Hawkeye, the zombie, clutching his bow and arrow, said, "We can't defeat him. Is he coming to kill us? Maybe. We need to get out of here. Tell Stark we need to move. Everyone, get moving quickly, or we won't be able to feast in another universe." They needed to move the equipment, or else Joshua would damage it, and they didn't know how long it would take to repair it. The zombies sprang into action. By the time Joshua reached Stark Tower, the zombies had mostly left. He ignored them and quickly reached the highest platform. He loved it there. From there, Joshua could watch the zombies evacuating below. Many of them were still wary of him. Joshua flung out his spaceship, enlarging it, and the spaceship quickly transformed into a mecha. The mecha slowly placed its hand in front of Joshua, and he stepped into its grasp. The mecha slowly lifted Joshua up. He saw a devastated city, utterly silent, with barely a sound of animal life. Almost everything alive had been devoured by the zombies. The universe will eventually be devoured by zombies. Soon, the Silver Surfer will descend upon this world, declaring it the chosen one of Galactus. Naturally, the zombies will launch a frenzied attack on the Silver Surfer, but he's too powerful, and even the claws of zombie Wolverine can't penetrate his defenses. Ultimately, it's only with the teeth of zombie Hulk that Silver Surfer's defenses are breached. Silver Surfer is then devoured, but one person is clearly not enough. After consuming Silver Surfer, the zombie heroes gain access to the primordial energy of the universe, making them even more powerful. An enraged Galactus descends upon Earth and quickly attacks the zombies. Galactus is incredibly powerful, forcing the zombies to retreat. Eventually, the zombies develop a powerful weapon and defeat Galactus with a single volley. The zombies then attempt to divide Galactus's food. However, due to uneven distribution, a civil war breaks out between the zombie villains and the zombie heroes. The zombie battles are incredibly brutal and bloody. Of course, the zombie heroes ultimately triumphed. They devoured Galactus, gaining even greater power. From there, they began devouring the universe, consuming planet after planet, even devouring alien worlds. In short, these zombies were truly outrageous. "Are you okay?" Zombie Gwen pulled a little girl to her feet. The girl was human, and Zombie Gwen looked almost human, so the girl didn't mistake the woman in front of her for a zombie. The girl let Zombie Gwen hold her hand, which reassured her. The zombies before her were terrifying. They had devoured her entire family. Thinking about it, tears welled up in her eyes. Food. Suddenly, a golden portal opened beside Zombie Gwen. It was the Zombie King, drool dripping from his mouth, his gaze fixed on the girl Zombie Gwen was holding. Zombie Gwen pushed the girl aside and said, "Run." The girl hesitated, wanting Zombie Gwen to go with her. "Hurry up," Zombie Gwen shouted again. Only then did the girl break into a run. The Zombie King swung his hand, and a portal appeared before the girl. Zombie Gwen naturally wouldn't let the Zombie King attack the girl. She broke into a run, now even more powerful than before. She knocked the Zombie King away. The Zombie King, momentarily enraged by the interruption, roared at her. Golden magic condensed into a blade, and the Zombie King swung it at her. Zombie Gwen reacted swiftly, easily dodging the attack and then sending the Zombie King flying with a powerful punch. The Zombie King's body fell to the ground, feeling his jaw broken by Zombie Gwen. Furious, he charged at her again. "Is this your takeout?" Suddenly, a black figure descended from the sky, wielding a blade that severed the Zombie King's head. The Zombie King roared, but the next second, Zombie Gwen kicked him away. Zombie Gwen looked at Zombie Black Cat and said, "Thank you." Zombie Black Cat had said something was up, so they'd separated. They'd unexpectedly run into Zombie Black Cat here. Zombie Black Cat hugged Gwen. She'd returned home to find her family had been eaten. She couldn't help but ask, "Gwen, will everything really start over again?" Zombie Gwen sensed the zombie's sadness and stroked her hair, saying, "Do you think Joshua would lie to us?" Zombie Black Cat looked up at Zombie Gwen and said, "He can heal us and make us stronger. I believe he wouldn't lie to us, but the thought of my family being eaten by zombies," Zombie Gwen said, "when the new cycle Joshua promised begins, you won't remember anything, and everyone will be saved." Zombie Black Cat looked at Zombie Gwen and couldn't help but say, "You're so hopeless, wanting to hold on to so many horrible memories." The little girl who had run away returned, clutching a baseball bat. She looked at Zombie Gwen and Zombie Black Cat and said, "I'll help you." The little girl looked frightened. Zombie Gwen let go of the Zombie Black Cat. She touched the little girl's head and said, "It's okay now. We will protect you from now on." The Zombie Black Cat nodded and said, "We are very strong now." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Silver Surfer. Zombie Peter, clutching his notebook, knew he was abandoning the area near Joshua. He had to devour the humans hiding there, believing themselves safe. Leaving them there uneaten would be a waste. He reached the rooftop of a supermarket and carefully descended. His movements were so light and graceful that the man and woman inside didn't notice. They were snoring, a perfect opportunity. Both naked, they must have known each other well beforehand. When Zombie Peter reached them, they didn't react. The smell of flesh and blood made Zombie Peter salivate. But he knew he had to be quick to avoid being seen, so he quickly and decisively twisted their heads off and began to devour them. The taste of flesh and blood satisfied him. Once he was full, his hunger subsided. Zombie Peter leaned against the wall in a daze. He ate another person. Slowly crouching against the wall, Zombie Peter ate Mary Jane and Aunt May. He should have protected them. Suddenly, Zombie Peter thought of Joshua. He might kill him. Zombie Peter longed for release. He felt like he was in hell. When hungry, he was tormented by intense hunger, and when full, he was tormented by his conscience. He was now tormented constantly. He had to hurry, or else the hunger would overtake him once more. Zombie Peter quickly reached Stark Tower and climbed up. He saw Joshua, who was eating. A gentle breeze blew by, and Zombie Peter looked at Joshua and said, "Kill me." He could no longer bear the torture. The dual torture of body and conscience was bringing him to the brink of collapse. Hearing Zombie Peter's words, Joshua devoured the food in his mouth and said, "You can't die yet." Zombie Peter hadn't expected this. He had thought Joshua would just finish him off. What use was he? What use? Eat people? Zombie Peter suddenly rushed towards Joshua. Would Joshua kill him? Zombie Peter longed for death. But the next second, a golden portal appeared before him. Zombie Peter rushed through, and the next second, he was in front of the other zombies. He suddenly turned around and saw the portal closing. "Peter, how did you get out of Doctor Strange's portal?" Zombie Captain America asked. Could Peter have learned magic? Zombie Peter said nothing. He felt his hunger coming back, and he wanted to eat people again. Peter, are you okay? Zombie Iron Man's eyes fell on Zombie Peter. I'm hungry, Zombie Peter said, his hunger growing stronger. I'm hungry too. Let's go get something to eat first, Zombie Iron Man said, and then he and Zombie Peter left. Meanwhile, Zombie Ant-Man returned to the basement. This time, he fed Black Panther some more food. Then he said, we've encountered a human, an incredibly powerful human. Not even the Hulk can hurt him. He's too strong, but he's also more delicious than ordinary humans. His flesh must be of the finest quality. By this time, Black Panther was left with only one leg and one arm. Zombie Ant-Man and Black Panther exchanged many words, finally cracking his mouth and saying, I've been talking to you for so long. Shouldn't you let me eat you? He then used his knife to cut off Black Panther's last arm. The zombie Ant-Man contentedly began gnawing on the arm, the taste of flesh and blood satisfying. Just then, the zombie wasp appeared. She stared at the zombie Ant-Man and said, You're hiding food. Furious, the zombie wasp questioned the zombie Ant-Man. Ant-Man's face darkened. He hadn't expected the zombie wasp to follow him. He was wondering how to handle the situation. He wasn't willing to share his food. Then, the zombie wasp said, I want some too, the zombie Ant-Man roared, as if provoked. Sensing danger, the zombie wasp quickly shrank, only to be bitten by the zombie Ant-Man. With a sudden tug, he ripped the zombie wasp's neck from her body. Furious, the zombie Ant-Man received a message from the zombie Stark. He controlled his rage. He saw the message. They had found a silver figure, but he was a biting beast. Food. The zombie Ant-Man threw the zombie wasp's head down and left. He was going to eat some fresh food. After the zombie Ant-Man left, Black Panther broke free, found a pocket, and stowed the zombie wasp's head. He then draped it over his body and departed. Now without his hands, tasks that had been simple before became incredibly difficult. Eat you, the zombie wasp's head continued to roar, but that was all it could do. The streets were now completely silent. Black Panther quickly left with a zombie wasp's head. He had to find the antidote. Have they arrived yet? Joshua sat on the mech's palm, eating, and stared at the distant place. Meanwhile, the Silver Surfer had arrived, declaring that the world was about to be devoured. The zombie Hulk, controlling the Hulkbuster, charged forward, roaring, I'm going to eat you. The Silver Surfer was a formidable figure. With a single punch, he pierced the Hulkbuster, sending the zombie Hulk flying. Not far away, the zombie Iron Man blasted the Silver Surfer with a palm cannon, but it had no effect. Silver Surfer rushed in front of zombie Iron Man and punched him through the chest. Any ordinary person would have been dead, but zombie Iron Man continued to attack frantically. Silver Surfer threw zombie Iron Man away. Something was wrong with this planet. Why were these people like monsters? Zombie Wolverine rushed in front of Silver Surfer and used his claws to stab Silver Surfer. It was obvious that he couldn't penetrate Silver Surfer's defense. Zombie Wolverine was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect his previously razor-sharp claws to be useless. Just as he was surprised, Silver Surfer swung a punch, immediately blowing Zombie Wolverine's head off. He flew up, his eyes fixed on Stark Tower not far away. He looked at Joshua. Is this person controlling these monsters? So, can they get rid of them just by killing this black-haired man? Silver Surfer flew towards Joshua in an instant. Then he raised his hand and launched a beam of light. This attack was very powerful. He had killed countless people in this way before. Just as he was thinking this, a scorching heat beam suddenly shot out, instantly piercing the Silver Surfer's energy attack. How could this be possible? The Silver Surfer was a little confused. Something happened today, so I can only write 2 chapters. Tomorrow I'll continue with more than 10,000 words. I'm begging for subscriptions. Chapter 83, Instant Kill of Devourer. Joshua appeared before Silver Surfer while he was still dazed, grasping him by the neck and slowly lifting him up. Silver Surfer struggled, but the dark-haired youth's strength was astonishing, and he was completely powerless. His grip was like an unbreakable iron clamp. The more he struggled, the more he realized the youth's suffocating power. Food, flesh, I'm going to eat him. A swarm of zombies roared beneath him, expecting Joshua to throw the man in his arms to be devoured. Joshua spoke, they want to eat you. Silver Surfer struggled to speak, but his voice remained hoarse. They can't hurt me. Silver Surfer was confident in his defense. After all, the zombies' attacks had been nothing to him. Joshua's lips curled slightly as he released Silver Surfer and let him fall into the swarm. Flesh and blood, the zombies climbed up one after another, each eager to be the first to taste flesh and blood. Zombie Peter was very agile. He leaped up, grabbed Silver Surfer, and bit him, but he couldn't break through Silver Surfer's defenses. The other zombies were also unable to break through the defenses until Zombie Hulk's head began to bite. He instantly broke through Silver Surfer's defenses, and Silver Surfer was then devoured by the zombies. Joshua suddenly felt strange at high altitude. The zombies were like animals waiting to be fed. Soon, the zombies gained new abilities. Zombie Iron Man launched a blast of raw cosmic energy at Joshua. The attack hit Joshua, but he still felt nothing. He unleashed a heat vision, which could destroy the Earth, and directly destroyed half of Zombie Iron Man's body. However, even so, Zombie Iron Man did not die. However, he was also severely injured. Seeing this, the other zombies dared not attack Joshua anymore, and they quickly dispersed, fearing that Joshua would blast them into pieces. Joshua didn't bother attacking the zombies. He checked the time. He would be home in a few hours. It had already been almost 2 days. Joshua felt that time had passed quite quickly. He returned to Stark Tower and marked this universe. Let's call it Joshua Universe 2. Joshua Universe 1 was the universe he had last traveled through, and the one he had evolved into. Lately, he had indeed felt that the power of faith had increased a lot, and he felt that he could create several level 5 faith warriors. Meanwhile, Joshua Universe 1. Doctor Strange, now dressed in white magic robes, had also learned Joshua's magic. The more he studied, the more he discovered Joshua possessed immense power, even at a remarkably low price. In the past, he would have likely sold his soul to gain such power, but now, simply offering a little faith granted him immense strength. This was undoubtedly excellent for him. He could even use Joshua's power to bargain with dimensional demons for even more power. This was truly remarkable. By now, most people in the universe had learned how to open the Book of God from Joshua. Practically everyone possessed a copy. In a certain universe, the Ancient One suddenly opened her eyes, mumbling something. She had only been studying magic for 2 months. Joshua. God, suddenly, a seductive voice whispered in her ear. He's an evil god. You should have seen him destroy the earth. You must be prepared, or he will return one day. What should I do? The Ancient One couldn't help but ask. Accept more of our power. Only then can we stop him. I understand, the Ancient One said. She had seen Joshua destroy Earth time and again. He was a demon who had destroyed countless Earths. She needed to be prepared. Of course, she couldn't do it alone. She needed to assemble a team, an incredibly powerful team, to protect her universe and Earth. A single glance could destroy worlds, a single breath could freeze entire universes. Such an opponent was too dangerous. She had to be thoroughly prepared. Joshua Universe II, also known as the Zombie Universe. The zombie heroes were adapting to their new powers, but despite their newfound energies, they weren't enough to defeat Joshua. Zombie Iron Man had transformed his body into a hybrid of flesh and steel. He felt even more powerful, and he was pleased with his current appearance. Just as the zombies were discussing how to deal with Joshua, a giant appeared. He was so enormous that his presence made the zombie heroes salivate. This was an unparalleled feast. Zombie Captain America led the charge, howling, charging at the giant. The next second, the giant unleashed an energy attack, vaporizing him. This time, Zombie Captain America was dead, and even a zombie was useless. Instantly, the other zombies began to flee. This giant was powerful. They needed a solution. As they fled, Galactus turned his gaze to Joshua and declared, I saw it. You killed him. You killed my messenger. You must become my new messenger or die, Joshua replied. He attacked me first, Galactus declared. You killed God's messenger. You deserve to die. Galactus advanced towards Joshua. The zombie heroes who had been fleeing stopped, curious as to who is stronger, Joshua or the suddenly appearing giant. If Joshua won, they could feast. If the giant won, they could vent their anger. Joshua, he slowly flew up and said, do you think you can kill me? The devourer of worlds opened its mouth and condensed a huge amount of energy. He planned to blow Joshua into ashes and then devour the planet. Joshua was in a hurry to go home, so he did not hold back. In an instant, Scorching heat vision shot out from Joshua's eyes. At the same time, the Devourer of Worlds also released an energy attack. The two energies collided, but it was obvious that Joshua was better. His heat vision pierced through the Devourer of Worlds' energy attack with an unstoppable force. It even shot through the Devourer of Worlds' head. Joshua turned around and murmured, "I have to go home." Chapter 84. After you leave, she is the safest place. An orange dot of light appeared out of nowhere, then rapidly expanded until it became enormous, forming an orange tunnel that looked as if it were connected to somewhere. Suddenly, a spaceship flew out. It transformed mid-air, transforming into a mecha. The towering mecha glided along the ground for a moment before slowly coming to a stop. The orange tunnel behind it quickly vanished. The mecha's hatch opened, and a dark-haired young man emerged. Joshua was on the African plains. He looked around and saw lions, a pack of them hunting. The mecha quickly shrank, and Joshua grabbed it and tucked it into his clothes. The lions had spotted him and were closing in. The symbiote suit gradually emerged, and Joshua slowly took flight. Bang! A second later, accompanied by a sonic boom, Joshua soared away. The lions that had been trying to hunt him were visibly startled. They fled, wailing. Penny watched the little spider mech scurrying around on the table and couldn't help but reach out and play with it with her fingers. "He should be back soon, right?" Penny said. Without Joshua to play games with her, she felt like something was missing. The opponents were so weak, the excitement was gone. Gwen, with short hair, sat on the sofa, reading a book, and then said, "It should be soon." She quite liked the book in her hands. It looked interesting. Although Penny said the characters were silly, she still thought it was quite good. Since it was Sunday, they had a long-awaited break to relax. Peter had been busy tinkering with something lately. Penny said he seemed to be working on some high-tech gadget. He seemed to be doing that whenever he had the free time. Her eyes fell on Anna, who was sitting beside her. Anna was chewing on her pen, lost in thought, probably stuck on a problem. Anna had been studying very hard since yesterday, and her dedication impressed Gwen. Anna, with her glasses and pigtails, looked like a country girl. Yesterday, she'd offered to help Anna with her makeup, but Anna had quickly declined, saying she'd rather be a nobody. This left Gwen speechless. Anna was a star at school, so how could she be a nobody? Anna scratched her hair and said, "That's hard." "How do you do this problem, Penny?" Upon hearing Anna's words, Penny walked over to her. She knew the solution at a glance, but she needed to think about the simplest way to explain it to Anna. Otherwise, Anna would have to spend a long time understanding it. After a moment of organizing her words, she began to explain in earnest. Joshua had just arrived at his door when he received a call from Natasha. "Hi, how was your vacation?" Natasha asked. "Not bad," Joshua said. He'd found the past 2 days quite interesting, having encountered zombies and even obtained a gem and evolved. Natasha said, "Do you have a minute now? I'd like to talk to you about what's been going on here lately." "I'll call you later," Joshua said. "Yeah," Natasha said. Joshua then hung up and put his phone away. Being home gave him a strange feeling, a sense of relief, a sense of relaxation. He wasn't tired at all. He walked to the door and unlocked it. Click. The lock snapped open. Several people in the living room turned and looked. Then they saw a familiar black-haired figure. "Joshua!" Penny sprang up and rushed toward Joshua, her speed so fast she was in front of him in the blink of an eye. She hugged Joshua and said, "Welcome back." "Any gifts?" Penny was most curious about the gift. What would Joshua bring? Joshua handed her the power stone and said, "Here you go." "Wow, it's beautiful," Penny said. She didn't know what the power stone was yet, but she thought it was beautiful and loved it. Gwen and Anna also came closer. Joshua and May looked at Joshua calmly, then smiled faintly. Joshua looked at May and said, "I'm back." May walked over to Joshua, hugged him, and said, "Welcome back." May released Joshua and received a blue gem, the space stone. May was delighted, saying, "It's beautiful." Joshua smiled and handed the soul stone to Gwen, the mind stone to Anna, and the reality stone to himself. Anna looked at the gems in her hands with joy, saying, "They were so beautiful." Joshua then went to find Peter. When Peter saw Joshua, he stood up and embraced Joshua, giving him a big hug. Peter said, "Welcome back." Joshua sat down and handed Peter some photos. He said, "These are you from 2 other universes. Wow, that's really cool." Peter couldn't help but look at them, and then he saw the zombie Peter. "Wow, He's a zombie, Peter frowned. A different version of himself had become a zombie? That was quite surprising, but on second thought, there was no rule that Peter was only human. Maybe in one of those universes, he was actually a monster. Peter continued, but I like this gift. Peter was delighted. Joshua, in turn, said, as long as you're happy. After a meal at home, Joshua went to find Natasha. Natasha was walking on the beach, wearing a swimsuit and a tulle draped over it. The next second, a sonic boom roared. Natasha looked up and saw a figure suddenly falling. The figure hit the ground, and the sand immediately scattered like waves. Natasha was almost caught in the wave. As the sand fell, she saw a figure. When the sand completely settled, Joshua's figure also appeared. Natasha crossed her arms and said, "That's a pretty cool landing, really? I think it's pretty cool too." Joshua walked up to Natasha and said, "So what's happened recently?" Natasha said, "Perhaps they were afraid some crazy people would disturb May, so during the 2 days you were away, the leaders of this world turned the area around your home into the safest place in the world. Of course, not only that, even some very powerful bad guys were protecting May. It can be said that during the time you were away, May was definitely the safest person in the world, and I'm just starting my vacation now." Chapter 85 Time Stone. Natasha and Joshua chatted for a while. She asked about other universes, and Joshua shared some of his knowledge. As they walked, Natasha said, "So you also encountered my zombie self?" "Yes," Joshua nodded. Natasha's understanding of other universes had broadened, but she also became wary. It seemed not all universes were the same. After getting what she wanted to know, Natasha said, "Protecting May has been tough lately." Joshua knew Natasha wanted some compensation. Honestly, he thought it was reasonable. After all, she'd helped protect May, so she deserved a reward. After a moment's thought, he handed Natasha the upgraded app and said, "As long as you contribute your faith, you will become stronger based on the strength of your faith. How much stronger you become depends on your faith." Natasha could sense something popping up in her mind, like some sort of system interface. It was a novelty. Natasha quite liked the gift. Becoming stronger? There were still many monsters in this world, so she longed to become stronger. Joshua checked the time and said, "I have to go." Natasha blew him a kiss and said, "Bye." Bang! A sonic boom erupted, and Joshua soared into the sky. He didn't return home, but instead appeared above the clouds. Gazing at the familiar scenery, he suddenly felt a sense of peace and tranquility. He didn't completely dislike the tranquility of daily life, of course. He still wanted a little adventure from time to time. Adventure was fun, and documenting those moments might be a source of inspiration for those who would later revisit them. Joshua stepped on the clouds. Suddenly, he looked in a certain direction. Through a gap in the clouds, he saw someone moving swiftly towards him, crashing through the clouds in a moment. It was a graceful body, and the symbiote created by venom after it devoured carnage was clinging to it. The symbiote material on her face dissipated, revealing the long-haired Gwen. She looked at Joshua, their eyes locked. She could fly and harness Joshua's powers, so if she wanted, no one in the world could defeat her except Joshua. She looked at Joshua with some delight. Yet, she remained reserved. She surveyed the scenery above the clouds and said, "It's so beautiful here," approaching Joshua. Joshua said. Gwen, her long hair flowing in the wind, said, "How was it?" "A trip, not bad." "Oh, and I brought you a gift." Joshua produced the time stone from the zombie universe. Seeing the radiant green stone before her, Gwen felt a surge of joy. She took it and said, "Thank you." Gwen looked delighted. She exclaimed, "It's so beautiful." The emerald-like stone filled her heart with joy. After putting it away, she looked at Joshua and said, "Class starts tomorrow. How about we go for a walk?" Joshua nodded. The two of them then strolled through the clouds. As they were about to part, Gwen hugged Joshua and said, "Welcome back." Joshua said. Gwen pulled away and said, "I have to go home. We have a family gathering today. Do you want to come with me? You know, I don't like noisy places," Joshua said. Gwen nodded and flew below the clouds. Joshua, in turn, opened a portal and returned directly to his doorstep. "Hi, Joshua," Jenny said, holding a basket and watching Joshua emerge from the portal. "Hi, Jenny," Joshua replied. Jenny's steps quickened a bit. She was wearing a long skirt that revealed a bit of her calves, making her look slender. She ran over to Joshua and said, "This is for you." Joshua took the basket and saw some meat inside. Jenny said, "This is a specialty beef from my hometown. It's delicious, so I came to give you some." Aunt May said she liked it last time. "Wow, thank you," Joshua said. Jenny couldn't help but sigh, looking worried. Joshua thought Peter would be a good listener, so he said, "Come over to my place." Jenny, hands behind her back, said, "Dad, he's made some money lately, and some of his old bad habits have returned. He's spending too much and always inviting over some crooked friends." Joshua looked at Jenny and said, "Jenny, your dad is very sensible." Jenny, hands behind her back, said a little embarrassedly, Can you help me? Someone's been pestering me lately. He's using your name, but he's still pestering me. He hasn't done anything out of the ordinary, but he's like a stalker." Jenny looked a little embarrassed, a little afraid to look Joshua in the face. "Okay, sure, but I have to put my things away first," Joshua said, lifting the basket. "Okay," Jenny said. Joshua went home and put his things away. As he passed through the living room, Penny said, "Joshua, come play with me later. I have something to do," Joshua said. "Oh, come back soon," Penny said. Anna looked up at Joshua, her lips pursed as if she wanted to speak. Leaving the room, he saw Jenny leaning against the wall, staring off into the distance. Joshua approached Jenny and said, "Let's go." Jenny, regaining her composure, immediately led the way. "Hey, Superman, do you want to try this?" a woman with long, wavy hair said to Joshua, curling one hand around her and inserting the fingers of her other hand. Sometimes women in this country are too open-minded. The woman with long, wavy hair noticed Jenny beside Joshua and said, "I don't mind having one more person. Besides, a black and a white person might be more exciting," Joshua said. "We're busy." "Oh, bye." The woman with long, wavy hair blew Joshua a kiss and then sauntered off. Joshua took in the woman's figure. She had a nice figure, with long thighs. Jenny, noticing Joshua's gaze, said, "Do you like this?" "Not really, but she's got a nice figure," Joshua said. Jenny nodded and then said, "Her butt is so big, it looks like she's been exercising." Jenny is a model and knows a lot about body maintenance, so she can tell at a glance that the big wavy blonde hair just now was the result of butt exercise. Chapter 86, Do you care what your companions think when you step on an ant? Soon, a young man walked in. Noticing Jenny and Joshua, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, as if something good had happened. The young man looked rather large in his suit, over 1.9 meters tall, but his features didn't give him the appearance of a perverted stalker. Of course, you can't always tell a person's true heart by looking at their appearance. The moment he saw him, Zero began researching him. Can we have a chat?" Jenny asked. She felt reassured now that Joshua was by her side. She didn't have to be afraid of him at all, so she had to make things clear to prevent him from pestering her further. "Hi, Jenny and Superman Joshua Parker." "Hello." Ken sat down. Strangely, his gaze was fixed more on Joshua, as if he was even more curious about him. But Joshua was Superman, so his curiosity was natural. After settling into his seat, Ken spoke. "So, Jenny, what do you want to tell me? Stop stalking me. You're scaring me," Jenny declared. Ken made her feel so insecure. It was terrifying, like walking in a dark forest, constantly on guard for Ken's attack. Sustained in this state for too long could lead to a mental breakdown. Jenny was in this state now, hypervigilant, irritable, and aggressive. The smallest thing could trigger her outburst. "Jenny, I'm protecting you." "It really hurts me when you say that," Ken said, his expression piercing. His acting was pretty good, at least the expression was perfectly executed. Jenny didn't react much to Ken's words. Having heard so many lies before, she knew the depth of his hypocrisy, the sickening insincerity. Joshua was the only one who hadn't lied to her, or rather, he disdained to lie to her. She said, "Ken, I don't need your protection. I have Joshua. No one in this world can hurt me, so please stop following me." Ken wore a sad expression and then said, "Jenny, I really care about you." The two of them talked for a while, and Jenny went to the bathroom to get some water. Once they were alone, Ken looked at Joshua and said, "How about we play a little game?" Joshua was about to say something when Zero appeared. Zero was Joshua's power, so even though Zero was right next to him, ordinary people wouldn't be able to see him. Zero explained that Ken had recently encountered a con artist who had tricked him into believing he possessed powerful hypnotic powers. He approached Jenny because he had heard that Jenny and Joshua had a special relationship. Zero said, his purpose in approaching you is to hypnotize you. Then he'll possess the greatest power, enough to make the entire world tremble. Zero added, I've never seen anyone so foolish. Joshua silently stared at the man before him, then said, okay, what little game? This man was truly outrageous. Why did he think he could hypnotize him? Ken produced common hypnotic props and began to use his powers on Joshua. Soon, he confidently declared, go destroy the city. Ken's face was filled with amusement, revealing his confidence in his skills, not worrying that Joshua wouldn't fall for it. Joshua slowly stood up. Ken was already daydreaming about ruling the world, drinking elegantly, looking like a nobleman. Suddenly, Joshua grabbed Ken by the collar and said, you're truly foolish and refined. Ken's expression changed dramatically, and he said in disbelief, you're not hypnotized. Why do you think I could be hypnotized, idiot? Joshua demanded. At that moment, everyone in the restaurant turned their gazes toward Joshua, some even snapping photos with their phones. Ken, noticing this, said, if you kill him, your reputation will be damaged. You don't want that, do you? If you let me go, I promise I won't appear before you again. Why do you think my reputation is so important to me? Joshua lifted Ken up and said, I don't care about reputation. I just do what I want to do, and I don't care what you think of me. After all, if you step on an ant, do you care what its fellow ants think? Joshua flung Ken out. He wouldn't die, but he certainly wouldn't feel well, and he'd soon be taken away by the police. Oh my God, someone exclaimed. Joshua's eyes fell on the people holding their phones. They quickly put them away. Hey, how can you hurt someone so carelessly? A girl stepped forward. Joshua looked at her. The girl strode up to Joshua, her hands on her hips, and said, even if you possess powers beyond those of ordinary people, you can't hurt anyone so carelessly. You don't deserve to be a Superman. Joshua interrupted her, I'm just a lucky person with superpowers, an ordinary person with superpowers. You don't deserve your powers, the girl said. How annoying. Joshua then picked her up and threw her into the trash can, saying, you're so annoying. Jenny then emerged, somewhat surprised, and asked, what's wrong? That guy is annoying. I'll stop bothering you. Let's go, Joshua said. Jenny approached Joshua, her eyes scanning the stunned crowd. Someone must have provoked Joshua. It took a while for the girl to emerge from the trash can. No one helped her, or rather, no one dared to. The onlookers embarrassed the girl, and she quickly left. As they walked down the street, Jenny followed Joshua and said, thank you for today, it's okay. We're neighbors after all, Joshua said. Jenny couldn't help but smile. I'm so lucky to have you as my neighbor. She loved being around Joshua, the feeling of being free from discrimination. Peter loved you when he was little, and he always followed you around, Jenny reminisced. Peter was a crybaby, always clinging to Joshua. Joshua's words reminded him of his childhood, when occasionally playing with Peter was fun, but it became torture over time. Peter was a tearful child, even watching a TV show. That was just childhood, Joshua said. Chapter 87, To Fight the Evil God Joshua. Upon entering the room, Joshua saw Penny sitting on the sofa, playing a game, seemingly enjoying herself. Anna sat at the table, reading a book. Joshua noticed it was a reference book, suggesting Anna had been studying diligently these days. Such people deserve respect. As for short-haired Gwen, she was strumming her guitar, and when she noticed Joshua, she immediately put it down and said, welcome back, Joshua. What do you think about us forming a band? Short-haired Gwen suddenly wanted to form a band, with Joshua, Peter, Penny, and Anna as members. Huh? Not interested, Joshua said, then sat next to Penny and watched her slaughter everyone. Penny's mechanics were excellent, and perhaps because they'd been playing together for so long, she would taunt anyone after a solo kill or a low health escape. Joshua would flash a taunt icon and even do a little dance after a solo kill. Okay, then, the rest of us team up, short-haired Gwen said. Joshua rarely had the nerve to do anything he didn't want to do. Since Joshua wasn't going, it would be her, Penny, Anna, and Peter. If long-haired Gwen wanted to join, that was fine too. If someone was committing a crime, she'd help. If no one was, she'd practice guitar. She thought it would be fun. Short-haired Gwen excitedly went to Peter's door. She knocked on his door. Peter soon opened it. Seeing short-haired Gwen, he said, wow, Gwen, what's up? Peter looked a little surprised. Gwen explained her purpose. Forming a band? Peter felt it was a chance to make his youth shine, so he said, I'd love to, but I'm not very good at it, but I'd love to. Gwen smiled and said, then let's form a band. Call it the Spiders. After all, it's basically all Spider-Man, except for Anna. Peter thought for a moment, then said, will Joshua join? He didn't think Joshua would join a band. If he had a choice, he'd probably choose to sit by the lake fishing rather than join a band. Joshua was just that kind of person. No, Joshua isn't joining, Gwen said. Wow, that's such a shame, Peter said, but then he thought, was he the only boy in the band? This made the adolescent Peter a little excited. How was it? Penny said in the living room, asking Joshua how he performed. Joshua gave a thumbs up and said, second one. Penny curled her lips. What did second one mean? She had definitely beaten Joshua, right? Penny said, let's play a round. Joshua nodded. Then the two of them started playing games, and they played until midnight. After finishing the game, they washed up and went back to their rooms to sleep. Meanwhile, a man resembling a small giant in golden armor sat on a throne. Beside him lay a massive blade. Below his throne, a group of people of various appearances knelt in worship. Great Titan, the entire universe will be moved by your kindness, Ebony Maw said, looking extremely excited. Not long ago, Thanos had wiped out half of all life in the universe and all superheroes with a snap of his fingers. Thanos was now the undisputed ruler of the universe. The others echoed Ebony Maw's words, each expressing their gratitude. Suddenly, a woman appeared. It was the young Ancient One, now imbued with a variety of dark magics. Despite her youth, she possessed immense power. Thanos noticed the Ancient One and said, you're dead. He knew the Ancient One of this universe was dead, and the one before him was clearly not from this one. He was curious as to why this Ancient One from another universe had sought him out. Thanos, take a look at this. Out of nowhere, an image appeared. Joshua transformed into a giant, crushing the earth. And then, Joshua's freezing breath froze the entire universe. In this image, Joshua displayed unparalleled power, a power that even Thanos had to take seriously. The Ancient One said, he's the evil god Joshua. He's destroyed universe after universe. Sooner or later, he'll come to your universe and destroy it. HMPH, Thanos snorted. The 6 Infinity Stones gave him confidence, and he was Thanos, a proud man. If he comes to my universe, I'll kill him. This universe was his, and he wouldn't allow anyone else to touch it. The Ancient One said, he's powerful. We must join forces. No one can defeat me, Thanos declared. The Ancient One was about to say something when the energy Thanos unleashed suddenly destroyed her. In a certain universe, the young Ancient One's eyes snapped open, and she cried out in fury, foolishness. She didn't believe Thanos could defeat Joshua with just 6 Infinity Stones. If that were the case, the dimensional demons wouldn't have given her so much power. The Thanos from the other universe had clearly been too youthful and impulsive. The Ancient One could sense the dimensional demons' fear of the evil god Joshua. They had to hurry. Ancient One closed her eyes again and journeyed to another universe. She needed enough strong teammates. Early in the morning, Joshua quietly ate breakfast. When he finished, he checked his phone, looking for any interesting news. He soon came across a message from Tony. It was some gossip, suggesting that Tony had taken possession of the mother and daughter. People were lashing out at Tony Stark, saying he wasn't qualified to be a superhero. Joshua didn't care about such things. After all, Tony wouldn't force anything, it was all about mutual consent. Furthermore, this could be an opportunity to change things for the mother and daughter. From what he knew about Tony, they could probably get millions of dollars, more than enough to live a comfortable life. They'd found a shortcut, and they might be very happy. Joshua later saw a report about Joshua stuffing a girl into a trash can. There were many comments. Opinions were divided, but the prevailing view was that Joshua was simply a lucky man with power. People began to praise Joshua's good fortune. Joshua glanced at the report and left. It was boring, not even a single person scolded him. I'm done eating, Penny suddenly said. Let's go. Joshua also put away his phone. Chapter 88, Being a Good Person is a Dead End. Joshua went to class alone in the mornings, and this time was no different. Penny had already taken Gwen, Peter, and Anna to battle in her mech. What surprised Joshua slightly was the evil dagger. It had recently become much stronger. It was clear that the evil provided by so many people was quite potent. Even if it had become stronger, he was quite excited to see how powerful it would eventually become. He set down the hoverboard and boarded it, moving forward at a leisurely pace. "Hey, Superman, would you like some buns?" an Asian youth asked. "No," Joshua said. He thought the buns made by that person were disgusting, or at least he wouldn't eat them. Joshua rode the hoverboard forward, seeing many students along the way. The younger ones would chase after him and play. The entire street looked very quiet, the entire block painted a sea blue, giving it a cool, chill feel. Joshua stopped. There was a traffic light ahead, and he had to wait a few seconds. Just then, a little boy looked at Joshua's hoverboard and said, "That's cool. Where did you get it?" "I made it myself." Bye. It was time to walk, so Joshua hurried on. A few blocks away, Penny, piloting a spider mech, was battling a giant Sandman. Peter was facing the pesky Electro, while Spider-Woman was facing Rhino, who had escaped from prison and was now even more powerful. Rhino looked at Spider-Woman and declared, "I'll crush you." Spider-Woman shot a web of silk that latched onto a car and swung it around. Bang! With a loud roar, Rhino was sent flying. Spider-Woman looked at Penny and Peter. They had both dominated each other this time. Penny, in particular, could practically punch through the Sandman with a single blow. Unfortunately, the Sandman was still a Sandman, and that wouldn't kill him. "Please get out of here," Anna said as she was guiding the group away when she noticed a massive object crashing nearby. She looked over and saw it was Rhino. Rhino's gaze grew increasingly anxious, and he set his sights on Anna. This woman exuded a delicate aura, and he thought he could easily crush her. He planned to deal with Anna first, then Spider-Woman. His Rhino armor unfolded, and two Gatling guns extended. They slowly spun, accelerating. Instantly, a barrage of bullets descended upon Anna. Anna didn't choose to dodge, for with people behind her, the onslaught of bullets would surely cause casualties. She unfolded her cape, knowing its powerful defensive capabilities. The next second, a hail of bullets descended, colliding with Anna's cape. Clink, clang, clang. The bullets couldn't penetrate Anna's cape. Spider-Woman wasn't idle either. She broke into a run, then leaped towards Rhino, grabbing a steel horn with her hand and exerting a sudden force. The massive steel Rhino was lifted by Spider-Woman, who then slammed him to the ground. Bang! A resounding roar echoed. Rhino was lying on his back, and his Rhino armor was embedded in the ground. Rhino was trapped. It would be difficult for him to stand up without help. Spider-Woman quickly jumped onto the Rhino armor, and then she used her brute force to tear open the chest part of the Rhino armor. There was an angry man inside. Spider-Woman wrapped the man with spider silk and hung him on the street lamp. Finally, a problem was solved. Spider-Woman then started to help Penny. The two of them teamed up with Sandman and were no match for him. They quickly dived into the sewer and escaped. "You have such powerful strength. Why do you have to do bad things?" Peter and Electro fought each other. "I'm so strong, why do I have to follow rules made by a bunch of weaklings?" Electro blasted Peter away, floating in the air. "I really don't understand. You should know how many people online hate you. Why do you still protect these disgusting people? They don't deserve protection, but you keep doing it. Why? Why do you do this?" Penny, in her mech, approached and said, "They do." Penny's mech arm pointed at a little girl who had struggled to save her dog earlier. Anna had found her and helped her. The girl, now covered in dust, was holding a puppy. There are good people and bad people in this world. Not everyone is unworthy of protection. Of course, there are some who deserve protection, Spider-Woman said. Peter stepped closer and said, "You can be a good person anytime you want." Electro looked at the Spider Squad and smiled. "I've been a good guy for decades, and what's the result? I don't even have money for medical treatment, and now I've been a bad guy for just a short while and I've already robbed millions of dollars. Ha ha ha, being a good guy is a dead end," Electro roared, thinking back to his past few decades. He'd worked diligently, supporting his family with a meager salary. He'd even helped others. It was nice to receive gratitude for helping others, but could that gratitude cure his own illness? Finally, his former friends hadn't helped him at all when he fell ill, and even mocked him for being stupid. Damn those scum. He'd once been poor and often discriminated against and despised, but now he'd murder anyone who dared to discriminate against him. He'd resort to robbing when he ran out of money. Life was much better for someone like him. He glanced at the frightened crowd and said slowly, I figured out how to survive in this city. First, don't mess with Superman. Second, don't mess with Superman's family. That's it. No one but Superman can catch me. Ha ha ha. Electro instantly disintegrated into a stream of scattered electricity and vanished. The Spider team members also quickly left. On the way to school, Peter said, why? If Joshua helps, no one in this world will be able to commit crimes. Penny said, maybe Joshua is standing too high. In his eyes, humans are like bugs. If a few bugs fight, would you, as a human, intervene? Peter, if he saw a few bugs fighting, he might watch with interest. Is it because Joshua is standing too high? The group quickly arrived at the classroom and saw long-haired Gwen playing with Joshua's hair. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, God but Ordinary Man. Peter looked at Joshua, who was reading a comic book. He looked like an ordinary high school student, well, a barely handsome one. He never thought of Joshua as a high and mighty god. On the contrary, he thought of Joshua as a trouble-averse, slightly homebody, and very ordinary. He also never thought of Joshua, who had the power to destroy the world, as scary. Peter suddenly thought of something. Maybe it was because of his family. Because they were family, he was not afraid of Joshua and even dared to argue with him. Peter looked at his deskmate and said, are you afraid of Joshua? No, as long as you don't provoke him, it's fine. Besides, he doesn't bully anyone, so why should you be afraid, said his deskmate. Peter seemed to be lost in thought. A few minutes later, he continued, Joshua possesses immense power. Aren't you afraid he'll kill you? Peter's classmate looked at him and said, so what? Just because he possesses immense power, should we be afraid of him? Should we stay away from him? Peter, there are many ordinary people in this world without powers who are even more dangerous, like the guy. The classmate pointed at a tall teenager. He's just an ordinary guy, yet he constantly bullies others. If someone like him possessed Joshua's power, I'd probably be afraid. Ordinary people bully people all the time. Who knows how dangerous he'd be with even greater power? Joshua is already kind enough. He doesn't bully people for no reason, does he? He even helps people. His kindness truly surpasses many others. A while ago, a little girl in my hometown had her father injured, and she used $1 to get Joshua's help. That's quite kind. I think he's just an ordinary, albeit somewhat lazy, good person with immense power. Peter nodded slightly. To his friends and family, Joshua might be just an ordinary person, but to others, he might be a god above all others. Joshua, you can tie your hair up now. Gwen measured it with a ruler and found it was now 15 centimeters long. Oh, Joshua said. Gwen pulled out her headband and hairpins and said, let me help you style it up. Joshua silently flipped through a comic book. It told the story of a man who was even more evil than the devil. His demons were also a bunch of idiots. It was a hilarious comic. Long-haired Gwen tied up Joshua's hair. Then, Gwen poked Joshua's face and said, why are you getting more and more beautiful? I'll get more beautiful as I get stronger, Joshua said. I'm so jealous. I want to look better too, Gwen said enviously. Then she whispered in Joshua's ear, look. Joshua glanced over and saw Gwen pull her collar back a little, revealing a thin, yet delicate white string. Joshua, Gwen quickly pulled his clothes back on. She said, aren't you curious? How did it feel? I didn't see it clearly, Joshua said. He was lucky today. How could you not see it clearly? Gwen couldn't help but ask. Then she sat upright and continued to help Joshua dress. Noon. Goodbye, Joshua. Penny and the others said goodbye to Joshua. They had to practice guitar later and keep an eye out for criminals. Yeah, goodbye, Joshua said, and then he left the classroom. Didn't I say I had to pay you today? A tall boy and a group of people surrounded a younger boy in the hallway. Someone noticed Joshua and pulled the tall boy. The tall boy looked at Joshua, then at the younger boy and said, hurry up and pay. Joshua walked over, and everyone looked at him. The tall boy was trying to remain calm. Joshua passed by, grabbing the tall boy by the collar and saying, is this fun? He then threw him out like a bowling ball, sending him gliding across the ground for a short distance. This school is Joshua's, and you, a transfer student, think you're bullying us? someone said. The tall boy had just stood up when Joshua picked him up again and threw him into the trash can. Then, Joshua threw his hoverboard, and he quickly rode away. He's so handsome, a girl said, watching Joshua from behind. Needless to say, he's the most handsome guy in the world. On his way back, Joshua ran into Jenny, who was wearing her school uniform and hugging her books. Seeing Joshua, she said, "Hi, Joshua." Jenny looked listless. Joshua didn't ask any questions, fearing they might lead to trouble. Jenny said, "Working so early this morning, I'm so sleepy. I have to make up for it later. I'm so exhausted." Jenny had been so busy, she felt like a taut rope, never knowing when it would snap. Maybe she needed to rest for a while and do what she needed to do now. After all, she didn't need to work to earn money anymore. Joshua listened silently, occasionally agreeing. Jenny poured out her heart to Joshua. Finally, she looked at him with a smile and said, "Goodbye." "Okay." Joshua waved and went home. Jenny has been so noisy lately, she was so quiet when she was little. Joshua returned home to find the two grown-up Peters there. He greeted them and sat down on the sofa. May was preparing lunch, and Joshua took out his phone to check. He saw a picture of Gwen with long hair, making the hand gesture and smiling, looking very bright. Gwen had sent him this. It was quite pretty. Dinner was served a few minutes later. Joshua was a quick eater, so he finished in no time. "Goodbye, Aunt May," Joshua said. "Bye." Just as he left the house, Joshua received a call. It was Natasha. "What's wrong?" Joshua said. I need your help with something. A monster is attacking people." "The address is..." Natasha looked at a monster not far away, a little angry. "Please," she had just rested for a short time. Suddenly, a sonic boom sounded. The sound made Natasha feel a little better. He had come. Upon his arrival, Joshua saw a monster. It looked to be 3 meters tall and resembled a giant hound. This creature was the mortal enemy of the Eternals. Noticing Joshua, the monster roared and rushed towards Joshua. Joshua released his heat vision and instantly cut the monster in half. Then, black tentacles appeared on Joshua's body, catching the monster's severed body and then began to devour it. These monsters can use cosmic energy, so they are very suitable to be devoured by their own symbiotes. After devouring the monsters, golden cosmic energy condensed around Joshua and soon formed a sword. The symbiote in his body has already learned how to use cosmic energy. Chapter 90 Monster Pet Dog. Joshua slowly descended, and then he saw an even larger monster, called the mutant. Hidden in a cavern underground, it stared at Joshua. A closer look revealed a slight tremor. It was highly sensitive to energy, and so it could sense the immense power within Joshua's body, so immense it even trembled. It had only been asleep for a while, so why had humans 100 times more terrifying than the Eternals appeared on Earth? He couldn't see him, could he? But his eyes were watching him. Then, he saw Joshua's hand rise slightly. The ground began to rise. Natasha, on the ground, couldn't help but step back. She saw the ground rise, and then a towering monster quickly appeared. The monster stood 10 meters tall, its length even more impressive. Even the Hulk didn't feel this overwhelming. Natasha couldn't help but step back again. Perhaps her attacks were ineffective? The enormous wolf-like monster stared at Joshua intently, growling. Joshua looked at the monster before him and saw it was trembling, though hiding itself well. He didn't have a dog at home, did he? The dragon Thor had given him was now living happily in his own little world. He looked at the trembling monster. It looked like it had a high IQ. Joshua hooked his finger at the monster. Natasha was puzzled by this. This giant creature looked like a dog, but it was clearly not. It was clearly a super monster. How could it possibly be like a dog? Just then, Natasha saw the wolf monster approach Joshua, wagging its tail. It even rolled on the ground to please him. This scene left Natasha speechless. Joshua stroked the dog's head and said, "Very smart, but too big." A little smaller, the monster immediately shrank, eventually becoming the size of a pet dog. Even after shrinking, it looked quite adorable. Joshua carried the dog and looked at Natasha, saying, "I have to go to class." "Okay," Natasha said, waving goodbye. With a sonic boom, Joshua faded into the distance. Joshua took the dog home first. When May saw it, she exclaimed, "It's really special." It still looked a little different from a real dog. Joshua smiled and said, "It's very obedient." With a few words, Joshua left. May tied up the puppy and said, "Let's go for a walk." The mutant dog rolled its eyes inwardly. If it hadn't been so terrifying with a human just now, it would have devoured the person next to it in a single gulp. It had eaten many people in the past. May led the strange-looking dog slowly, and the abnormal dog walked slowly, unhurried. After a long walk, May sat on a bench to rest, and the mutant dog lay at her feet. It was quiet, but soon it stood up, its previous silly expression disappearing in an instant. It sensed the presence of the Eternals, its mortal enemies. Just then, May suddenly vanished from its side. For a moment, the mutant dog's scalp tingled. If that human monster knew it had lost its family, that bastard would definitely kill it. But it quickly calmed down. These Eternals were protecting humanity. This meant they had taken May to prevent it from harming her, especially since the mutants had previously been cannibalistic. This thought calmed it. After taking May, the Eternals would likely attack it. Sure enough, a few moments later, an Eternal emerged, 2 women and a man. The man exuded a powerful aura, suggesting considerable strength, though still far inferior to the monster humans he had encountered. The 3 Eternals surrounded it. But it showed no fear. They were just Eternals, it had fought them before. Its body gradually expanded, quickly reaching over 10 meters in height. It was a formidable presence, and the 3 Eternals on the other side didn't dare to underestimate it. "Macquarie, evacuate the area," Icarus said, slowly ascending, his gaze fixed on the towering monster. "Circe, help us," Icarus said, glancing at the woman beside him. Meanwhile, Aunt May, who had been taken a short distance away, walked back. She felt something had brought her there, perhaps a superhero. However, her dog was still where she'd been, and she had to go find it. A moment later, she heard a terrifying roar from a monster. A few steps further, she saw an enormous wolf monster, roaring and fighting a human. It was a being whose eyes could emit golden rays and could fly. It felt somewhat similar to Joshua, who could fly and also emit golden rays from his eyes. "Get out of here," Circe ran to May's side, ready to protect her. Macquarie was an incredibly fast Eternal, so fast that the mutant dog struggled to hide her. While her damage was minimal, it was difficult to even break through its defenses, which was a bit annoying. Icarus swung a punch at the mutant dog, but the dog reacted quickly, dodging the blow and pinning Icarus to the ground with its claws, pinning him down with a firm grip. Icarus was proud, but now his face was pressed to the ground, which made him furious. His eyes released golden rays, which swept everywhere, almost injuring May. A tree next to May was directly cut down and fell towards May. The mutant dog immediately gave up suppressing Icarus and ran madly. He must not let this human get hurt. Circe was knocked away by the mutant dog, and then the mutant dog directly knocked the tree away. Only then did it turn and look at the Eternals. How dangerous. May was also stunned for a moment, then she said, "You are a puppy." The mutant dog looked back at May and nodded. May was a little surprised, but after thinking about it, she wondered why Joshua would bring such an ordinary dog home. She looked at the Eternals and said, "It's my dog. It didn't mean to hurt me just now, treating mutants as dogs." This was a really bad joke. Icarus said, "Damn mutants, you controlled this human." The mutant dog pushed May back, then suddenly ran in another direction. As long as it stayed away from May, it wouldn't be afraid of hurting her. Icarus quickly caught up. Circe looked at May and said, "Just kill it, and you'll recover." May continued, "It didn't hurt me. It's the puppy Joshua brought back." "Joshua? Superman Joshua?" Circe couldn't help but ask. She knew Joshua, but she didn't think he was invincible. The Eternals were also very strong, just not as high profile as Joshua. Chapter 91, Joshua's Crushing. The mutated dog was powerful, but faced with 3. It could fight 2 Eternals, but not 3. Circe transformed the ground into a quagmire, trapping the mutated dog within. Then, she quickly hardened the ground with cosmic energy, rendering it incredibly solid. The mutated dog, with only its head exposed, growled angrily, "One-on-one, you despicable Eternals." Icarus slowly approached the mutated dog. He'd given it a hard time. He was going to kill it. May approached the mutated dog and said, "It really doesn't control me." Icarus's previous good mood had faded. He reached out to grab the annoying woman and throw her away. Suddenly, Macquarie saw a figure rushing towards him, moving at great speed, aiming for Icarus. She tried to warn him, but was too late. Bang! With a resounding roar, Icarus was sent flying, plowing a 100-meter-long trench through the ground. Macri immediately launched her attack, charging towards the figure. Too slow. After knocking Icarus away, Joshua grabbed Macri's hand and slammed her into the ground. A loud boom echoed. A large crater was created, and Macri lay unconscious in it. Joshua glanced at Cersei. Cersei had always assumed Joshua was just an overly flamboyant superhero, a high-profile figure whose power couldn't rival that of the Eternals. But now it seemed she was wrong. This superhero was incredibly powerful. Joshua's foot tapped the ground lightly, and the next second, cracks appeared in the ground where the mutant dog was trapped, allowing the dog to quickly escape. At that moment, a golden beam shot towards Joshua. Before Joshua could strike, the symbiote had already condensed cosmic energy into a golden shield, which blocked Icarus' beam. Cosmic energy, Cersei exclaimed in surprise. This was the energy only possessed by the Eternals and Deviants. Wow, I can do that, too. Joshua glanced at Icarus, and the next second, a searing golden heat beam shot out. Icarus' beam collided with Joshua's, and the next second, Joshua's heat beam pierced through Icarus' beam with a whirlwind of force. Just as Joshua's heat beam was about to pierce Icarus's head, Macri hurriedly pushed Icarus away, narrowly avoiding Joshua's heat beam. Thank you, Icarus said, just as Joshua appeared out of nowhere. Golden energy rapidly emanated from Macri, and her figure vanished in an instant. Her speed was so great that it seemed as if she had vanished in an instant. Macri attacked Joshua, but her punches were blocked by Joshua every time. How could he be faster than her? She continued to accelerate. Cersei could see countless afterimages attacking Joshua. But Joshua's body didn't waver at all, meaning Macri's attack was ineffective, or perhaps she simply didn't hit Joshua. What was wrong with this human? Why was he so powerful? Is that your fastest speed? I'm a little disappointed, Joshua said, and then he began to move. Macri quickly closed the gap, but Joshua was faster than her. Joshua appeared beside Macri and said, "You're too slow." Macri's eyes widened, and the next second Joshua's hand grasped Macri's neck and lifted her up. Macri was completely unable to break free. At this moment, Icarus slowly took off, glaring at Joshua and saying, "Let her go." Joshua slammed Macri to the ground and then stomped on her. "You hit my dog, and you're trying to attack my family? You're brave," Joshua said. Icarus rushed towards Joshua. "There's a huge gap between us," Joshua said, and then disappeared. A second later, sonic booms echoed around them, and Icarus's body was sent careening back and forth. In a split second, Joshua tossed Icarus in front of Cersei. Icarus's face was covered in blood, and he felt like his bones were shattered, unable to even move. Cersei, holding Icarus, was filled with worry. She quickly glanced at Joshua and said, "We just want to help this lady. She was with the mutants, and we were worried she might get attacked." Cersei hurriedly explained that the Superman before her was simply a sumped-up version of Icarus. May understood what was going on and said, "Joshua, listen to her." Joshua knew what Cersei was about to say, but he didn't want to hear it. "I have to go to class," he said. "Goodbye, Aunt May," Joshua said, quickly leaving. Cersei breathed a sigh of relief when Joshua left. She then spoke to May. "A long time ago, the mutants, the monsters behind you, eated humans. We were responsible for fighting them and protecting humanity. So, when we saw it near you, we mistakenly thought it was going to attack you." At this point, she let out a bitter smile. "We didn't expect Joshua to treat mutants like dogs." It's unbelievable, May finally understood. It had been a misunderstanding. Looking at Macri and Icarus, who had been injured by Joshua, she felt a pang of guilt. "I'm sorry," Cersei hurriedly said, "no need. It was just a misunderstanding. Joshua probably thought we were going to attack you, so he attacked us. If you don't mind, come to my house. I have some medicine," May said. Cersei nodded. Icarus and Macri needed to be treated in a safe place. "Come in," Hathaway said, looking at Joshua outside. Joshua walked into the classroom. When he reached his seat, Gwen asked, "What were you doing?" "Nothing. Someone hit my dog, and I went to take care of it," Joshua said. "Dog? When did you get a dog?" Gwen was surprised. She knew Joshua didn't have a dog. "I found it this afternoon. It looked pretty and smart, so I took it home," Joshua said. Gwen asked, "Does this dog have any special abilities?" "I don't believe you'd keep an ordinary dog. This dog is called a mutant. It's a monster, about 10 meters tall, And looks very imposing, Joshua said. Gwen's eyes lit up, and she said, I'll go with you this afternoon to see it. I want to know what this dog looks like. Aren't you going to do the heroic work? Joshua said. Let's go after this. I'll stay at your house tonight, Gwen said. Whatever you want, Joshua said. He looked at Hathaway, who was wearing red. Chapter 92. Are you teaching me how to do things? After class, Joshua, carrying his backpack as usual, walked home from the classroom into the hallway. A cheerleader spotted him and immediately said enthusiastically, Hey, Joshua, do you want to go to the game? You can see all the pretty girls. The girl was accompanied by some other cheerleaders, all of whom looked at Joshua expectantly. Someone's waiting for me. I have to go see him, Joshua said. The girls smiled and expressed their hope that Joshua would go next time. Joshua simply smiled. Then he threw his hoverboard down, and it quickly grew larger. Once it stabilized, he stepped on it and began to move forward. Joshua, you can't skateboard in the hallway, an old man said angrily. Got it, Stanley. This old man had always been against him, and he wasn't afraid of him at all. Because he looked like Stanley, Joshua called him Stanley. That's not my name, the old man said, but Joshua had already vanished. Joshua soon arrived outside the school and saw a fat black man. Joshua walked around the man and prepared to go home. Hey, the fat black man stopped Joshua. Joshua could sense the cosmic energy in the fat black man. He thought he was an Eternal. My name is Fastus, and I'm an Eternal, the fat black man said with a hint of arrogance. He knew Eternals were superior to humans. Oh, so what do you want from me? Joshua asked. He was looking at the Eternal on his hoverboard. If he remembered correctly, it was the Eternal who had knelt before that damned island nation. Joshua was in a bad mood. You have power beyond the Eternals, but why don't you use it to save people? I heard you wanted to charge money. Fastus looked at Joshua with disappointment and said, Humanity is always like this, greedy, violent, and even used nuclear weapons to kill many people. Fastus said a lot of preachy words. Joshua's gaze fell on the Eternal. Are you lecturing me? Fastus said arrogantly. I simply want you to use your power for the right purpose. I know you're intelligent. Together, we should eliminate the effects of nuclear weapons. As long as wrongdoing deserves punishment. It's only right. Besides, I'm not in a good mood right now. It's best not to talk to me anymore. Joshua stepped onto his hoverboard and prepared to leave. Fastus glared at Joshua and continued, selfish. Why are you so selfish? Joshua's gaze fell on Fastus again, but now his eyes were gradually turning golden. Scorching energy gathered in them, ready to melt everything in an instant. Fastus hurriedly used cosmic energy to form numerous defensive barriers. But Joshua's heat vision had already been unleashed. The golden laser was so blazing and terrifying. It instantly pierced Fastus's defensive barriers, incinerating Fastus in an instant. Stupid thing, I told you not to talk to me anymore. Do you think my thermal vision isn't hot enough? Joshua muttered. Everyone nearby witnessed Joshua's brutality and they were all surprised. But they were surprised at what the person had said that made Joshua so angry. You know, Joshua has a better temper than most people. Someone came to deal with it soon. They told everyone that the person was a terrorist who planned to blow up the school. Everyone suddenly realized that this was the case. Icarus sat on the reef, he looked at the sea and said, Fastus is dead, killed by Joshua. Circe looked a little sad, she said, why did he anger Joshua? The Eternals were already few in number. And now another one has died. This made her feel very sad. Icarus said, I heard their conversation. Fastus said that he would combine Joshua's wisdom to solve the pollution of nuclear weapons on the island country, and Joshua said that if he did something wrong, he should be punished. Then Fastus angrily questioned Joshua's selfishness, which angered Joshua. Then Joshua killed Fastus. Circe sat down and said, Fastus thought Joshua was a human being and talked to him with the arrogance of the Eternals. He shouldn't have angered Joshua. He shouldn't have angered a human god. Now Joshua is the strongest in this world. Icarus suddenly said, Joshua will die, he will definitely die, as long as the Celestials come, Joshua will definitely die. Even if a human has power beyond the Eternals, he can't defeat the Celestials. Circe took Icarus's hand and said, don't offend a god easily, he will kill you. Icarus said, I wouldn't be so stupid, but I have to leave for a while. Circe didn't ask Icarus where he was going, she just told Icarus not to mess with Joshua. Humanity was changing too fast. with more and more powerful humans appearing. The Eternals were no longer the strongest. Joshua, in particular, was so powerful that he frightened her. Icarus slowly flew into the sky. Circe looked at the calm sea. It was so peaceful that she felt very comfortable. However, she was still saddened by fastest death. I quite like it here. It's quiet and there's a cool breeze. Joshua appeared out of nowhere. Circe was startled. She quickly stood up and looked at Joshua warily. Joshua sat on the reef and said, "Well, I'm just telling you to tell your people not to mess with me, or I'll kill them. Honestly, in my eyes, you Eternals are nothing more than strong ants. It's easy for me to kill you." Circe's breathing quickened. "I'll keep them in check." Joshua now frightened her. "Well, that's a smart choice. By the way, do you think there's punishment for doing something wrong?" Joshua's eyes were now golden, dazzling and terrifying under the night sky. "Yes, there is punishment for doing something wrong," Circe said with some difficulty. "I thought you were all fools." "Well, Mom, sweet dreams." Joshua slowly took off, the dust around him swirling around him. Bang! With a sonic boom, Joshua soared into the sky. Circe collapsed on the reef, the image of Joshua's golden eyes lingering in her mind. Chapter 93 The Dog Who Can Backflip. "Ha ha ha, so funny," said long-haired Gwen, watching the mutant dog do backflips on the rooftop of Joshua's house. The mutant dog was having a blast, too. It was actually quite nice up there. No worries about food or being attacked by the dastardly Eternals. And with Joshua as a boss, no one dared to touch it. Life was pretty good. Short-haired Gwen, sitting on the sofa, said, "This guy is very obedient and smart." She wondered where Joshua got such a clever dog. It was incredibly smart. Penny looked at the mutant dog curiously, then said, "It doesn't look like a normal dog. I feel like it's dangerous." Anna was a little afraid of the mutant dog. She had a feeling it was dangerous, like it could tear her apart. "It's okay, Anna. Joshua brought it back, so it's safe," said long-haired Gwen. She'd been staying at Joshua's house that day and had already told her family. Her mother had reminded her of the precautions, which had left long-haired Gwen feeling somewhat helpless. She didn't know how many times her mother had told her. Yet, Anna nodded. Suddenly, long-haired Gwen noticed Joshua and said, "Joshua's back." Penny waved, "Hi, Joshua." Joshua landed smoothly on the rooftop. As soon as he arrived, the mutant dog flew over to Joshua, seemingly wanting to hug him. Joshua noticed dust on the mutant dog's paws and kicked it away, saying, "Get out of the way. My pants are clean." The mutant dog wasn't angry. After all, Joshua wasn't using much force. If he had, it would have been reduced to pulp. It was smart, so it just wagged its tail at Joshua instead. Long-haired Gwen said, somewhat helplessly, "Joshua, why did you kick it? It looks pretty smart." "Smart is good. One kick and it'll remember. If it's a little dumber, it'll get a few more," Joshua said. Then he continued, "I'm going to play some games, wait for me." "I want to go too." Penny followed. Anna glanced at Joshua's back and said, "I have to go study," then went downstairs. The mutant dog also followed suit. For a moment, the two Gwens were alone. Long-haired Gwen stretched and said, "It's a nice day today. We can see a lot of stars." Seeing her optimistic expression, short-haired Gwen felt a sense of empathy and couldn't help but say, "I really envy you." "What? What should I envy?" long-haired Gwen couldn't help but say after hearing short-haired Gwen's words. Short-haired Gwen began to tell her story. She recounted her friend Peter, who had turned into a lizard and died in her arms, her mother's early death from illness, and even her own universe's destruction. Short-haired Gwen had endured many hardships and painful experiences as Spider-Woman. Meanwhile, the Gwen in this universe was truly blessed. Her parents were still alive, she had several adorable brothers, and even a close friend like Joshua. Long-haired Gwen could act cute with Joshua anytime, anywhere, all things short-haired Gwen envied. Long-haired Gwen hugged short-haired Gwen and said, "It's okay, everything will be fine." In the living room, Penny and Joshua were teaming up to kill everyone, and Penny was having a blast. "Oh, Joshua, don't give up, you're making the game harder," Penny said with a smile. Joshua's attempt at a 1-on-5 fight had failed, so he just gifted a kill, instantly upgrading the enemy's equipment. Joshua glanced at Penny and said nothing, simply continuing his game. The two adult Peters and Peter and May were discussing the day's events. It sounded lively. Joshua took a moment to glance at Aunt May. She was smiling, clearly happy. Time slipped by. Joshua had also retired to his room early to rest, but he soon opened his eyes because several sneaky people had entered. Anna said weakly, "Let's go back and not disturb Joshua's sleep." "Don't worry." Long-haired Gwen grabbed 2 pillows, weapons to attack Joshua. Penny grabbed the pillows with great interest. Short-haired Gwen was also excited. Hey, Joshua, watch out," long-haired Gwen said happily. Meanwhile, Peter pressed his head against the wall. He heard the girls playing and the sound of Joshua's name. He wanted to join in, but he didn't have the chance. Peter was envious. Forget it, he should just read. Only knowledge is his own. So Peter began to study seriously. After playing for a long time, long-haired Gwen lay breathless on Joshua's bed. "I'm so tired." Without Joshua's power, her physical fitness was the lowest among the group, so she tired the most easily. Joshua looked at them and said, "Time to rest." Right, the girls were also a little sleepy. They had traveled a lot today to catch criminals. So they left one after another. Joshua lay on the bed, Gwen's scent still on him. Early in the morning, Penny flew off to fight in her mecha. Peter, short-haired Gwen, and Anna also left. Long-haired Gwen looked at the departing group and said, "They've worked so hard." "Yeah, aren't you going?" Joshua said. Long-haired Gwen stroked her hair and said, "They're enough. I don't have to go." They both walked slowly. Soon, they ran into Jenny. "Hi, Joshua." Jenny glanced at long-haired Gwen. She knew Gwen, so she said, "Hello, Gwen." Gwen nodded and said, "Hello." She didn't know Jenny, but Jenny probably mistook her for short-haired Gwen. Jenny couldn't help but glance at long-haired Gwen and Joshua. They were so close today. The 3 of them walked and chatted. Soon, Jenny separated from them. Gwen glanced at Jenny as she left and said, "She's very beautiful, with a great figure." "She's a model," Joshua said, noticing something subtle in Gwen's expression. Gwen poked Joshua with a finger and said, "You two are close, right, neighbors?" "We've known each other since we were little," Joshua said. The 2 of them walked and talked until they soon arrived at the classroom. After putting their backpacks away, Joshua took out a comic book and opened it to read. At this time, Gwen suddenly said, "I seem to remember Mary Jane was also a model." After saying this, she looked at the red-haired Mary Jane. "Yeah, she's a model," Joshua began to say. "That's amazing. What do you think about me becoming a model?" Gwen asked curiously. "It should be okay." Chapter 94 Friday. There were no classes this afternoon because Peter and his friends had accidentally injured the teacher who was supposed to be teaching that afternoon class while fighting the villains this morning. The teacher only had a sprained ankle, but it was clear that she wouldn't be able to attend class. It was already Friday, and Joshua was still curious about what world he would be visiting tomorrow. He hoped it would be a more interesting world. Around 1 o'clock, Joshua received a call asking for help. Joshua was in a good mood, so he asked for the address and flew over. When he arrived, he saw an old man in a large group of people. As soon as Joshua landed, the old man stepped forward and said, "Excuse me." The old man said that there was a big mountain blocking the road in front of their village, which made it very difficult for them to purchase goods, but they could not raise enough money to ask for help, and now there are only old people and children in the village. Previously, a child almost fell into a ferocious river while climbing a mountain. The old village chief felt that this could not go on. It would be too distressing if a child fell into the river and was washed away. The old man said a lot in one breath, and finally looked at Joshua and touched his head awkwardly. He was a little worried about being rejected. "Well, okay." Joshua looked around the mountain and saw that there was no one there, so he decided to just split the mountain in half. The old man rubbed his hands again, and just as he was about to say something, he saw Joshua slowly flying up. The scorching energy gathered in Joshua's eyes, and his eyes turned golden little by little. In just a moment, the golden light completely occupied Joshua's eyes. Then golden rays suddenly shot out, and the scorching heat line of sight cut a mountain in half. After cutting the hole, Joshua flew to the hole and pried the mountain apart. In an instant, the hole widened a lot. Joshua then dealt with it again, and when he felt that no boulders would fall and hit anyone, he came to the old man with satisfaction. The old man opened his mouth slightly at this time. The troubles that had plagued the village for generations were actually solved so easily. "Any other requests?" Joshua said. The old man shook his head hurriedly. He was very satisfied. He took out a few crumpled bills from his clothes. He knew it was not enough, so he continued to search. Joshua looked at the old man and the women and children behind him. The children's clothes were tattered, and some of the younger children's clothes were dirty. It was obvious that this was a poor village. The old man handed the money to Joshua and said, "This is my savings for decades." Joshua did not take it. The old man was a little embarrassed. He thought Joshua was disgusted by his dirtiness. He planned to exchange it for some clean-looking money and let a clean child give the money to Superman. As soon as the old man turned around, Joshua said, "Can you give me some of the local specialties?" The old man, he turned back to look at Joshua and said, "Our specialties here are watermelons, a very sweet and seedless watermelon. You can take them all, as long as cars can come in next year, they can make a lot of money. Zioya, come, go to your melon field." Zioya was a girl who was still biting her fingers. Her clothes were dirty, but her eyes were very bright. She ran to Joshua and grabbed his hand with her other hand. This scene made the old man's eyes widen. Joshua had not taken the money before, so he thought that Joshua did not like dirty things. "Zioya," the old man roared. But Zioya had already pulled Joshua's hand. The old man found that Joshua was not angry, and it could even be said that he had almost no expression. The old man realized that he did not dislike it. Zioya was startled by the voice. She looked at the old man in confusion and said, "Grandpa Village Chief, can't I take Superman brother with me?" Before the old man spoke, Joshua said, "Take me with you." The little girl took Joshua and ran, her tied hair flashing. After a while, they arrived at the melon field. Zioya picked up a big watermelon and said, This is good." Joshua thought about it and realized that there were quite a lot of people in his family, so he had to order a few more. Joshua also asked about the price. He earned his own watermelons from work, so he naturally wouldn't pay for them, but other people had to pay for theirs. After Joshua picked enough watermelons, he paid for the watermelons. The little girl was a little overwhelmed with the money. Because the village grandfather told her not to accept Joshua's money. She handed the money to Joshua and said, "I'll give it back to you." Joshua shook his head and pointed to a watermelon and said, "I won't pay for this, because this is the reward for my work, and I don't have extra time to argue with you. I have to go." Joshua quickly flew into the sky with a watermelon. When he got home, Joshua distributed the watermelons. Peter took a bite and his eyes widened in an instant. "My God, this is so sweet." The watermelons in the supermarket are like sponges that have absorbed water and have no taste at all, Joshua said. This was grown by a great-grandma. Penny imitated Joshua and ate with a spoon. At this time, May said, "I'll go get one for Jenny." She still remembered the meat Jenny had given her before. "I'll go." Joshua went to Jenny's house with a watermelon in his arms. He knocked on the door. Soon someone came to open the door. "Joshua." Jenny looked at Joshua in surprise. "I've got a watermelon for you." "It's very sweet," Joshua said. Jenny said, "Come in." Joshua walked in. Jenny's house was very big. Jenny took the watermelon and said, "Thank you." Then she took the watermelon to the kitchen and cut it open. It had no seeds and looked very red. It was completely different from the watermelons in the supermarket. She tasted a little. The next second, her eyes widened. The watermelon was so sweet. She went to the living room, put the watermelon in front of Joshua and said, "This is so delicious, as long as you like it, bye." Joshua stood up and said. Jenny suddenly grabbed Joshua. The next second Jenny seemed to be frightened. She hurriedly let go of Joshua's hand. She touched her hair with her hand at a loss. "Wow, what did I say? Sorry," Jenny said. She subconsciously wanted Joshua to stay here for a while, so she stretched out her hand. Now she felt very embarrassed. Jenny waved and said, "Goodbye, Joshua." Yeah, Joshua left. Seeing Joshua leave, Jenny couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Just kiss him directly. I know this guy too well. He just doesn't want to take the initiative, or he is too lazy to take the initiative. You just need to be a little more proactive. If you go straight ahead, he won't refuse, Jenny's father said. Jenny immediately said, "If he pushes me away, I won't have the courage to continue living here. With an average subscription of 2,300, I feel like it has the potential to be a quality product. I bow down, and beg you to subscribe." Today's chapter is a transitional chapter, and tomorrow will be exciting, so please subscribe. It only needs an average subscription of more than 600 to become a quality product. And thank you very much. Chapter 95. I was exploded by a nuclear bomb. Saturday was the day to travel to another world, so Joshua said goodbye to the others early in the morning. A spaceship emitted an orange light, forming an orange tunnel in the sky. Once the tunnel stabilized, Joshua flew into it. In New York City, a certain universe. A massive tunnel appeared in the sky, and a steady stream of strange soldiers descended upon Earth through it. Even giant, insect-like steel monsters passed through the tunnel and arrived on Earth. Atop a tower, Thor raised his hammer and summoned lightning, which instantly destroyed a vast swarm of Chita soldiers. Captain America and Natasha were clearing out the remaining troops below. Hawkeye, from the high building, fired a burst of arrows. His arrows were incredibly versatile and always effective. Iron Man attacked with a variety of weapons, missiles, lasers, palm cannons. But the most powerful was the Hulk, and these monsters were no match for him. Many people in New York City had not yet been evacuated, and they hid in their rooms in fear, realizing that the few superheroes before them could not completely stop the Chita soldiers. Various villains then joined the battle, for Earth belonged to them, and they wouldn't give it to aliens. Of course, these villains didn't encounter the superheroes. Even the Ancient One was clearing out some of the miscellaneous soldiers. Iron Man glanced at the teleportation tunnel and told the others through his headset that they had to close it, or they wouldn't be able to hold out much longer. Joshua was listening to music and eating chips in the spaceship. Of course, it was Zero who was feeding Joshua. Joshua was afraid of getting his hands dirty, and remembering playing games while eating chips, he shook his head. This was still better. Zero said, Chris has become the leader of the succubi. He's currently leading them and other smaller demon races against the more powerful demon races. Chris has been busy lately. Using the power Joshua gave him, he quickly brought the succubi under his control. He then began spreading Joshua's seeds of faith, turning each succubus into warriors of faith. While there weren't many powerful warriors of faith yet, the base was large enough to provide a significant amount of faith. The succubi had been suppressed for so long that they were frantically grasping at this opportunity. Success would see them rise to the highest echelons of hell, free from oppression and toyed with, but treated as wombs for childbirth. So, these succubi were practically frantic. Zero spoke a great deal, and Joshua listened, gazing at the orange tunnel before him. They should be almost there. Zero fed Joshua some potato chips. He felt thirsty, and just as he reached for water, his symbiote had already prepared a glass and quickly brought it to him. Zero watched silently, then said, "Are you afraid I'll make you feel useless?" She addressed the symbiote. A black substance gathered on Joshua's shoulders, then fused and fused, forming a woman's head. She now resembled a dark-skinned young woman. She knew what Joshua liked, and so she transformed herself into this form. The symbiote looked at Zero and said, "Master and I are inseparable." Zero replied calmly, "You are completely superfluous. You can hardly help Master. If I were you, I would leave Master of my own accord." Zero continued, her words sharp and pointed. Frequently surfing the internet, her combat prowess surpassed even that of the Zoans. Her words cut like knives into the symbiote's heart. Unable to withstand the pressure, the symbiote silently entered Joshua's body. Zero then calmly surveyed the tunnel and, moments later, declared, "We're here." Iron Man, carrying a nuclear bomb, flew towards the tunnel in the sky. As he passed through it, the tunnel slowly closed. His armor was now completely black, and his energy supply had been depleted. Was this the end? He couldn't help but smile. After all these years as a playboy, he had finally done something worthy of admiration. He had saved New York City. They should erect a statue for him, right? He was a little unsure. Just then, he saw an orange light appear, rapidly expanding. Something seemed to be emerging. Was it a Chita soldier? Before he could see clearly, he landed at the entrance of the tunnel and plummeted down it. His vision was obscured. "A new world," Joshua exclaimed joyfully, but the next moment, a nuclear bomb exploded behind his ship. The blast engulfed the Chita soldiers and Joshua's ship. The ship was propelled by the nuclear shockwave. Joshua instantly knew he had been hit by a nuclear bomb. Who the hell would use a nuclear bomb on him? Joshua's ship was pushed out of the tunnel, and he saw a human city. This was New York. Joshua studied the ship. Fortunately, it was made of vibranium, otherwise it would have been destroyed. The ship also had some magical defenses, so even a nuclear bomb would have had difficulty destroying it. The ship quickly deformed and plummeted to the ground, plowing 2 furrows in the ground in an instant. Hulk also grabbed Iron Man and landed on the ground. Captain America and Natasha Hawkeye also looked at the mech, and Thor summoned lightning. It was obvious that they mistook Joshua for a cheetah. Fierce lightning struck the mech, momentarily blinding. When the lightning attack subsided, the mech's hatch opened, and stairs extended from the cabin. A dark-haired boy slowly descended, his expression grim. Damn it. Last time, Thanos pelted him with a meteorite, and this time, he was bombed with a nuclear bomb. Did these worlds dislike him so much? With every step Joshua took, the symbiote engulfed a portion of his body. Seeing Joshua's expression and the aura emanating from him, Thor tightened his grip on Mjolnir and said, "This guy is powerful. Be careful, can he defeat the Chitauri army?" Hawkeye knocked an arrow and released it. Captain America tightened his grip on his shield and said, "Be careful." Natasha clutched the Chitauri soldier's weapon. She had a feeling this human-looking boy was dangerous. Tisk, a magical barrier appeared around Joshua, blocking the arrow. Smash! Hulk rushed towards Joshua. The Hulk smashed everything in his path, crushing the ground beneath his feet. He raised his hands and smashed them down on Joshua. Joshua clenched his fists, his gaze calm as the Hulk leaped high. He was already pissed off by a nuclear bomb, then shot with a bow and arrow, and now someone was going to hammer him? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96: Crushing Thor's Hammer. The Hulk's powerful blow shook the entire block, kicking up a cloud of dust that was carried by the shockwave towards Captain America and his companions. "Wow, there's nothing the Hulk can't handle with one punch," Hawkeye exclaimed, sheathing his arrows. Suddenly, several more muffled sounds were heard. Hawkeye listened carefully and said, "Maybe the Hulk is still angry and needs to vent." Captain America nodded. The Hulk was very powerful. In the dust, Joshua had previously blocked the Hulk's attack with one hand. Honestly, the Hulk's attack was light to him, like a child's. He grabbed the Hulk's hand and pulled, causing the Hulk to stagger. The Hulk was a little surprised that such a small human could pull him. Just as he was surprised, Joshua's fist smashed into his face. For a moment, the Hulk felt dizzy and staggered backward. The intense pain made him even more furious, and he rushed towards Joshua again. Hulk launched a straight punch at Joshua, a punch capable of piercing steel. The Hulk had pierced countless walls and steel with it. Joshua parried the Hulk's attack with his hand, then landed another, this one drawing a bloody nose. Joshua's attacks intensified, leaving Hulk completely powerless to counterattack. It was as if the Hulk was being savaged one-sidedly by Joshua. Each Joshua punch was overwhelming. The dust hadn't even settled before Hulk collapsed. Joshua grabbed Hulk's hair and slowly stepped out of the dusty area. Wow, wow, wow. I'm not dead. Iron Man suddenly opened his eyes. He had been unconscious since Hulk rescued him. Captain America declared, "We won." Iron Man smiled. Hawkeye also smiled with relief. Thor was already thinking about how to celebrate. "Wait a minute, something's not right with the guys," said Natasha, the Black Widow. Then a shadow gradually emerged. A black-haired boy held a green monster. It was the Hulk. Green blood stained Hulk's face, and he looked severely wounded. For a moment, a chill ran down their spines. What kind of monster could this black-haired boy have beaten Hulk so badly in such a short time? Joshua grabbed Hulk's hair, swung him, and threw him in front of them, saying, "That's it, Hulk." Natasha squatted down to check Hulk's injuries, but he was unconscious and unresponsive. Captain America clutched his shield tightly and said, "Everyone, be careful." Hawkeye's palms were sweating. He hadn't felt this nervous in a long time. But would his arrows have any effect on the monster before him? He had already severely injured Hulk. Meanwhile, Gu Yi, atop the New York Temple, looked at Joshua. She could sense that he was from another world, and she could sense his terrifying power. She chose to wait and see, unsure of what he was up to. She felt this black-haired boy was even more terrifying than a dimensional devil. If he was going to destroy the world, she would be powerless to stop him. She watched silently. Captain America rushed towards Joshua, shield raised. He was extremely fast, and once he reached Joshua, he slammed the shield into Joshua's head. Normally, this move would have been enough to kill an enemy instantly. Bang! The shield slammed into Joshua's face. Joshua's expression remained calm. Even if he had stood there and let Captain America hide him, Captain America would not have been able to hurt him. Captain America was stunned. His full strength attack had no effect. Joshua grabbed the shield and kicked Captain America. Captain America hurriedly blocked with his hands, but the powerful force still sent him flying, and he was thrown into the rubble like a cannonball. A sharp steel bar pierced his body. He slowed down, feeling the blood on his abdomen and the steel bar that pierced his body. He took a few deep breaths and took one step forward. He screamed in pain. Joshua, holding Captain America's shield, looked at the others and said, "Are you so vulnerable?" Thor swung his hammer and instantly launched himself at Joshua. Natasha attacked Joshua with the Chitauri soldiers' weapons, but to no avail. Hawkeye's arrows were also insufficient damage, so he could only use supporting arrows to protect Thor. Thor's hammer slammed towards Joshua, who blocked it with his shield. A moment of mad lightning flashed. Joshua then smashed his shield into Thor's face, sending him flying almost instantly, sending his body slamming into the building. But the next moment, he rushed out and said, "You've pissed me off." Thor swung his hammer and hurled it towards Joshua. Facing this ferocious blow, Joshua raised his hand and grasped Thor's hammer. Looking at the hammer firmly in his grasp, Joshua smiled and began to exert force. Thor declared, "You can't crush him." Thor believed no one could crush Mjolnir. "Oh, really?" Joshua exerted force, and in an instant, Mjolnir shattered, unleashing its power. Natasha and the others were toppled by the force. Thor's eyes widened as Mjolnir lay scattered before Joshua. How could this be possible? His face was filled with disbelief. Joshua asked, "What did you just say?" Thor charged at Joshua in anger, only to be met with a brutal blow from Joshua's shield. Each of Joshua's strikes dealt Thor a crushing blow. In mere seconds, Thor lay bruised and battered on the ground. Joshua kicked Thor away and advanced towards Natasha and Hawkeye. Hawkeye raised his bow and arrow, ready to strike, but the next moment, Joshua appeared, grabbed his neck, and slowly lifted him up. Joshua's slightest effort inflicted excruciating pain on Hawkeye. Natasha raised her spear and stabbed at Joshua. The sharp spear pierced Joshua, but it had no effect and could not penetrate at all. Joshua suddenly felt a little bored. He felt like an adult bullying a group of children. He hit Natasha with Hawkeye, then looked at Stark Tower. He saw Loki trying to escape with the Tesseract. "Monster," Loki couldn't help but say at this time. He actually crushed Thor's hammer. What a pervert. He had to escape. He took the spear and laid with the Infinity Stone and the Tesseract and prepared to leave. "Where do you want to go?" "And the things you are holding are mine." Suddenly a voice appeared. Chapter 97. You will face the armies of the world. Stark struggled to emerge from his Iron Man armor. He glanced at the people around him. They hadn't been in such a state when they'd previously fought the Chitauri soldiers. Thor's hammer was crushed, and men lay on the ground, seemingly dead or alive. Stark's gaze swept across the ruins before settling on the Hulk, who had gradually regained his appearance as Dr. Banner. Not far away, Captain America was trying to staunch the bleeding, while Natasha and Hawkeye gazed at Stark Tower in confusion. Stark sighed and walked into Stark Tower. He had to do something, or the world he had so hard saved would be destroyed. He took the elevator to the bottom floor and saw the once invincible Loki, now cowering on a sofa. A dark-haired boy stood nearby, examining Loki's spear. Stark looked at Loki and said, "Why are you so trembling like Bambi?" This infuriated Loki, who immediately shouted, "Shut up, human. I can kill you anytime." Stark taunted Joshua a few more times before looking at him and saying, "So, who are you?" "Well, I'm from Earth." Joshua considered the spear. Loki thought Joshua was joking. How could an Earthling be so strong? But seeing Joshua's calm expression, he felt he might be telling the truth. Aren't humans supposed to be ridiculously weak? Then why did they possess a being capable of crushing Thor's hammer? This being's power was even more terrifying than Odin's. Loki wanted to flee, but he didn't dare. "Earthling," Stark was surprised. "I'm from another universe. I came to this one to travel. As soon as I arrived, I was bombed with a nuclear bomb. Upon landing in New York, I was shot with arrows. And then I was hammered by a green monster. So, just be thankful I didn't kill you." Joshua tossed the spear to Loki and said, "A piece of junk." Loki chuckled and took the spear, but didn't dare leave. Jarvis then warned, "Sir, 6 nuclear warheads are heading for New York. Their target is..." Stark sighed and said, "Drink something, or you won't have a chance." He made himself a drink and said, "Who wants one?" Joshua said, "Juice." Loki was anxious. "My lord, I can get you out of here." He couldn't withstand the force of a nuclear weapon. Joshua said, "It's okay. I have a mission for you later. Do you want anything to drink?" Loki was like an ant on the hot pot. He wanted to leave immediately, but he didn't dare. The monster before him was too terrifying. "I want wine, any flavor." Then the 3 of them began to drink. Loki had noticed the nuclear bombs by now, and Stark had noticed them too. Joshua snapped his fingers, and suddenly a flash of orange light was released. The next second, 6 nuclear bombs exploded, but the explosion sent out a sky full of petals. In an instant, all of New York was covered in petals. Loki's eyes widened. Could magic be used like this? "Wow, this is beautiful," Stark said, and his curiosity about Joshua grew. Loki swallowed and said, "My lord, what do you need me to do?" "Help me spread the faith in this universe," Joshua said. Loki had clearly been drafted by Joshua. A ball of light appeared in Joshua's hand, and he spoke, "With this, your strength will be enhanced, and you can also monitor your mission progress. If you're slow, you'll be punished." Loki felt incredibly frustrated. He silently accepted Joshua's light. Suddenly, he felt a multitude of things, like control panels, appear before his eyes. Then he saw a girl, a black-haired girl. He hadn't noticed her before. The girl waved and said, "I'm your assistant, the master. I'll be monitoring your mission progress regularly. You can call me Zero." "Hello," Loki said with a bitter smile. Joshua labeled this universe Joshua Universe 3. It wasn't particularly interesting, it felt like a fairly normal universe. A few minutes later, the other Avengers arrived. Dr. Banner and the others were stunned. They thought Stark was going to be killed, but they hadn't expected these 3 to be drinking. Joshua paid no attention to the Avengers. He walked over to the Tesseract and picked it up. To help Loki move faster, he planned to use the Space Stone to create a suit. This would allow him to quickly travel across space, which would be very useful for spreading his faith. Thor looked at the Tesseract and said, "That's from Asgard, it's mine now. Who told you to attack me so carelessly before?" "This is mental damage compensation," Joshua said. The mech below them took flight and soon flew over to Joshua. Joshua's mech released a workbench, where he began crafting a suit. Stark watched curiously, sensing Joshua's advanced technology. Soon, a blue suit appeared, with a space stone embedded in its chest. Joshua handed the finished suit to Loki and said, "This will make you faster. If you encounter someone you can't defeat, you can escape." Loki took the suit, delighted, and suddenly felt that being part of Joshua's mission to spread his faith was a good thing. Joshua then put away the workbench. He glanced at the miserable crowd and said, "You asked for this. I was just traveling, and to be attacked by you would be infuriating." Suddenly, Stark's phone rang. He swiped his finger, and a projection appeared. It was Nick Fury. He looked at Joshua and said, "This is not your world. Please leave immediately, or you will face the entire world's army." "Face the entire world's army?" Joshua couldn't help but ask. Nick Fury nodded. "Come on, I'm bored anyway," Joshua said, looking a little happy, as if he had found a toy. Nick Fury? Joshua's answer left him unsure what to do. It seemed he had no choice but to send a message to someone. Nick Fury looked at Joshua and said, "Although you are powerful, there are those more powerful than you." At the same time, a figure like a meteor entered the atmosphere and fell towards Stark Tower at an extremely fast speed. Nick Fury said confidently, "You are about to face an invincible man and the entire military of the world. There are only 3 chapters today. Something else has delayed my writing. Sorry, I'm still begging for subscriptions." Chapter 98 Captain Marvel and the 6 Gems Thanos. "He's coming," Nick Fury declared, his confidence in Captain Marvel's abilities evident. In Nick Fury's view, Joshua possessed the technology to travel across the universe and even possessed immense power. Studying him would definitely bring them one step closer. While there were risks, the rewards were equal, and the greater the risk, the greater the reward. Despite Joshua's previous displays of immense power, he still felt he couldn't match Captain Marvel. Suddenly, a roaring sound was heard. "Something's coming," Thor declared. The others looked toward the sky. Suddenly, a figure, seemingly ablaze with flames, plummeted to the ground. The area where the figure landed shattered. "Wow, wow, wow, wow," Stark exclaimed, then took a few drinks to calm his nerves. Everyone else was a little nervous. The flaming energy gradually condensed into the figure's body. A woman appeared, her gaze fixed on Joshua. "You?" Captain Marvel had expected a vicious adult to face her, but instead, she was confronted by a seemingly childlike child. "Contain him," Nick Fury declared. Captain Marvel nodded and flew toward Joshua, holding back considerably, as Joshua appeared so harmless. However, Joshua easily grabbed Captain Marvel's hand and sent her flying with a kick. In an instant, Captain Marvel was like a shooting star, just a meteor soaring into the sky. Nick Fury, the invincible Captain Marvel, sent flying. But Captain Marvel soon landed with even greater force, completely crushing the platform of Stark Tower underfoot. "Stark, you pissed me off," Captain Marvel said, stretching her neck. Joshua's kick had made her realize the strength of this young man. Captain Marvel charged toward Joshua, this time with incredible speed. But suddenly, everything slowed down, and Captain Marvel's speed dropped dramatically. Joshua said, "You should be able to handle this." Joshua took action, his speed so fast that he was almost at Captain Marvel's side in an instant. He punched Captain Marvel in the stomach, sending her falling backwards, though her speed now seemed incredibly slow, as if played in slow motion. Joshua's speed, however, continued to accelerate. In this slow-motion world, Joshua's speed was so fast that only a shadow could be seen. Soon, everything returned to normal, and to the others, Captain Marvel seemed to be being tossed back and forth by an invisible force. They could hear the explosions, but they couldn't see what was happening. With a final roar, Captain Marvel collapsed. Joshua's speed was so great that she could see him clearly at first, but then his speed increased until she couldn't see him at all. Joshua grabbed Captain Marvel and said, "Still no good," before throwing her in front of Nick Fury. Previously, when he had struck Captain Marvel, Joshua had been wary of killing her, so he hadn't used much force. However, the sheer frequency of his attacks still made it difficult for her to withstand them. Nick Fury, looking at the unconscious Captain Marvel, Nick Fury's mind raced. This young man was even more powerful than Captain Marvel, meaning he even possessed the power to destroy the world. Nick Fury was a little frightened. In a secret room, Nick Fury spoke, "It's clear he has the power to destroy the world, and we've already angered him." A woman said, "We surrender." Another man said, "Surrender? Will that really work?" They began arguing. After a while, Nick Fury said, "I'll try to communicate with him." The others nodded. Joshua said, "When will the army arrive?" Nick Fury looked at Joshua seriously and said, "We surrender." Surrender. Joshua sat down on the sofa, somewhat disappointed. "That's really boring," he thought for a moment and said, "Since you surrender, you have to give us something, right?" "What do you want?" Nick Fury said. As long as they were willing to communicate, it would be fine. He was afraid Joshua would act like a madman. Let's have the president of this country do a dance," Joshua said. Seeing the smile on Joshua's face, Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed their world didn't have what Joshua wanted. Soon, the entire world was broadcasting the president's dance. Feeling a little bored, Joshua summoned Loki. After explaining some things to Loki, Joshua boarded his spaceship. "Let's explore other universes." In one universe, a towering giant sat on a throne. He was already very old, yet he remained the strongest being in the universe, perhaps even stronger. It had been so long since anyone could challenge him, and he longed for someone even stronger. Great Titan, Ebony Maw suddenly appeared and spoke. "What's the matter?" Thanos asked. He had ruled this universe for so long, his deity here. But standing so high up in the sky had left him feeling lonely. He began to miss the days of battling one enemy after another. "We've discovered an outsider, and he's now on Earth," Ebony Maw said. "This outsider would surely please Thanos." "Capture him and bring him to me," Thanos declared. "We did, but he is too powerful." The golden rays from his eyes instantly killed Black Dwarf. Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive are also dead. "Only you can defeat him," Ebony Maw knelt. A being from another universe had recently appeared on Earth, and they had planned to capture and study him, but this person was incredibly powerful and impossible to capture. Thanos took up his sword and donned his armor, inlaid with the 6 Infinity Stones. He then stepped down from his throne. Ebony Maw quickly moved aside, declaring, "The great and invincible Titan will surely triumph." Thanos used the power of the space stone to open a blue portal that led directly to Earth. He crossed the blue portal and saw a young man sitting in the ruins. The boy turned around and looked at Thanos and said, "I didn't expect that you in this universe would succeed and become the strongest person. This universe is much more interesting than the previous one." Thanos was actually a little excited. He felt his blood boiling. He grabbed the big knife and looked at the boy and said, "I will chop off your head, and then go to your universe to slaughter everyone because you provoked a god." Chapter 99. You are even more indestructible than the universe. Joshua slowly rose from the ruins. He sensed that Earth had become much less populated. It was obvious that this universe's Thanos had completed his plan, successfully wiping out half the universe's inhabitants. Thanos, clutching his sword, declared, "You may call me Thanos." His gaze was piercing, as if it could see through everything. The dark-haired youth before him looked somewhat immature, yet possessed immense power. "I once killed an Asgardian named Thor. He had the opportunity to kill me, but he didn't seize it," Thanos reminisced, seeming somewhat nostalgic for the past, the days of striving for his ideals. "Oh, in another universe, Thor killed you," Joshua began, his symbiote suit gradually appearing and covering Joshua. "Really? You're wearing a symbiote? I know about them, but they were useless," Thanos declared. The two chatted like friends. When the symbiote formed a cape behind Joshua, they both looked at each other. Thanos raised his blade and said, "Ready." Joshua nodded. The six-gem-wielding, elderly Thanos was Joshua's most formidable foe. Suddenly, the 6 gems on his body shone brightly. Thanos roared, and the next second, a burst of purple energy shot straight towards Joshua. The ground that came into contact with the purple force was instantly obliterated. Cracks appeared in space. A beam of purple energy shot towards Joshua, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared in the space surrounding the beam. Joshua's eyes were gradually filled with golden light, growing brighter and brighter. The scorching energy gathered, gradually building to a point of annihilation. When it reached its peak, 2 golden heat rays shot out. The golden and purple energies colliding and annihilating each other. The space at the center of the collision rapidly shattered, unable to withstand the combined force. Thanos increased his energy output. Joshua's heat rays grew stronger, but it was clear that Joshua's heat rays were gradually gaining the upper hand. Soon, Joshua's heat rays pierced Thanos' purple beam. Golden heat vision sent Thanos flying. Once Thanos regained his composure, he glanced at his chest. The heat vision had ripped through his armor, leaving it severely damaged and his body covered in burns. Strong, Thanos then used the power of the gems to repair the armor and the burns. He looked at Joshua, delighted. It had been so long since anyone had been able to break his defenses. The burns Joshua inflicted gave him a surge of excitement. Thanos removed his helmet, tossing it aside and exclaiming, "Keep going." Thanos broke into a furious run. Joshua slowly floated upward, then charged at Thanos. The two collided, and Joshua grabbed Thanos' hand and delivered a powerful punch to his head. In an instant, Thanos was sent flying backward like a missile, smashing through countless tall buildings. "Ah!" Thanos roared. Instantly, his sonic wave, centered on Thanos, blasted outward, shattering buildings. The wave swept toward Joshua, completely shattering buildings for kilometers. Joshua clapped his hands together. A shock wave erupted from Joshua's center, colliding with Thanos' sonic wave and Joshua's shock wave before canceling each other out. Thanos glanced at the dark figure floating above the ruins and declared, "If you had a few more years to grow, I wouldn't be your match, but you're not." Thanos broke into a run, his speed increasing. A single kick could crush the ground. And he charged at Joshua like an unstoppable beast. Joshua felt a long-awaited surge of passion, perhaps eager for a fight. With a sonic boom, Joshua flew forward. In a split second, the two collided. Thanos' fist struck Joshua, and Joshua's punch landed in return. Bang! A shockwave erupted from them, lifting everything. Mud and debris were instantly pushed aside. Everything seemed too fragile for the two. Thanos, enduring the excruciating pain, grasped Joshua's hand and delivered a powerful upward punch, sending him flying. This time, Thanos used the Power Stone, sending Joshua flying far. Joshua was unexpectedly sent flying to the moon. Upon landing, Joshua felt his abdomen. He felt no injury, not even pain. But this Thanos was still quite interesting. He lowered his legs, his gaze fixed on Thanos on Earth. Then, Joshua launched himself, and the moon beneath him instantly shattered. Thanos felt the spot where Joshua had struck him. His bones were shattered, but thankfully, the stone's power could repair them. As soon as the stone's power repaired his body, a sense of danger overwhelmed him. Thanos looked up and saw Joshua falling rapidly. He raised his hand and unleashed the stone's energy, a dazzling radiance. Joshua didn't dodge, for his body was the strongest substance in existence, so there was no need to dodge. He adjusted his position and launched a kick. The gem's energy collided with Joshua's Superman kick. In a split second, Joshua pierced the gem's energy. The kick sent Thanos flying, obliterating half of his body. Thanos screamed in agony, but the next second, he used the reality stone to modify his damaged reality, returning to his full power. Joshua soared steadily through the air. He looked at Thanos and said, "Not bad, you're still alive." Joshua's tone sounded like a mockery to Thanos. He slowly straightened and said, "I admit you're strong, but I still have a chance." Joshua shook his head and said, "That was just a warm-up. Now is the real start." Joshua began to exert his full strength. The moment Joshua unleashed his power, everything around him slowed down. It was time to end. Joshua rushed out in an instant. Thanos could see Joshua's movements and could somewhat follow them, but a moment later Joshua's speed was so fast that he could no longer see. Then, like a punching bag, Thanos was beaten back and forth by Joshua. Each of Joshua's punches could shatter stars, but Thanos, relying on his powerful body and the power of the gem, withstood all of Joshua's attacks. After a few seconds, Joshua grabbed Thanos' head and said, "You are even more indestructible than this universe." Chapter 100, Banished to the DC Universe. Thanos stood amidst the ruins, his armor tattered and battered. He panted as he gazed at the young man before him. Despite the prolonged battle, the young man still appeared immaculate. Thanos conceded that the young man before him was even more powerful than he was. Even with the power of all 6 gems, he still couldn't defeat him. Thanos suddenly smiled and declared, "I cannot defeat you, but I can expel you from this universe." With a snap of his fingers, a burst of multicolored energy erupted, opening a tunnel behind Joshua. A powerful pull threatened to pull Joshua in. Joshua hadn't expected Thanos to do this. Wasn't this guy ready to fight him to the death? Thanos' actions infuriated Joshua. A burst of golden heat ray pierced half of Thanos' body, blasting 4 of his gems away. Thanos' expression changed, and he quickly used the power stone to blast Joshua into the tunnel. Seeing Joshua swallowed by the tunnel, Thanos breathed a sigh of relief. What a close call. Just then, a figure slowly emerged, picked up the 4 Infinity Stones, and then set them in his arms. Thanos sensed something, and turning back, he saw a familiar figure. Tony Stark. Thanos had assumed Stark was dead, but he was still alive. Stark's armor gradually emerged, and he spoke, "I've spent a long time crafting a suit that completely blocks the damage from the gem's energy. This time, I'll save them all. To that end, I even injected them with a super serum." The 4 Infinity Stones suddenly erupted with brilliant light. Suddenly, not far away, Joshua's armor automatically took flight, opened an orange tunnel, and flew through it. Zero tried to locate Joshua, but his position kept shifting, making it difficult for her to locate him. Only when Joshua stopped could she locate him. But now she had to control the ship and leave, otherwise Thanos would be in trouble if he reached Joshua's universe. As Stark's body slowly became covered by the armor, he declared, "Thanos, I will kill you this time." "Really? Then let's try." Thanos still possessed the Power Stone and the Reality Stone. The battle between Stark and Thanos raged on for a long time. Finally, Stark used the Time Stone to find opportunities again and again, and finally succeeded in killing Thanos. After decapitating Thanos, he snapped his fingers, and those who had vanished due to Thanos' snap gradually reappeared. 20 years had passed, and he had finally done it. The gradual appearance of familiar faces brought tears to his eyes. Suddenly, a colorful tunnel appeared in the blue sky, and a person fell from it. Soon, the person sprinted towards the tunnel, but it was already closed. "Thanos!" A roar filled the air, sending tremors through the crowd below. Joshua floated in the air, then cast his gaze downward. Everyone below was watching him. Joshua heard a chorus of voices. "Is that Superman?" "But Superman isn't black." "Batman." Joshua took a moment to process the information. He soon knew where he was, the DC Universe, and Gotham City. Damn Thanos, but thankfully he could use faith to locate his own universe. However, Traveling across universes was obviously impossible. He needed to build a spaceship. If he wanted to travel between both the DC and Marvel universes, he'd have to upgrade it. Damn it, I have to kill Thanos when I get back. Zero soon appeared before Joshua. Joshua said, "Tell Aunt May she needs to stay in this universe for a while, but it won't be long." Zero and Joshua were connected by faith. Zero nodded and quickly vanished. Joshua slowly descended, the black symbiote suit gradually shrinking into his body. But after just a few steps, a figure descended from the sky, a red cape fluttering behind him, his underwear worn outside, and an S on his chest. Everyone was indicating that the man before him was Superman. Joshua had no interest in fighting Superman, so he said, "I just happened to be passing through here. I'll be leaving in a few days." Superman looked at Joshua and said, "You look a lot like me. Are you also a Kryptonian?" Joshua shook his head. He had no weaknesses. Superman felt a little regretful. He had assumed the boy before him was also a Kryptonian. After a moment's thought, he said, "Can you tell me more about your situation?" Joshua nodded and was about to speak when a missile flew towards them. Superman instinctively grabbed the missile, but it didn't explode, instead releasing a green mist. The smell of the mist instantly gave Superman a frightening feeling. He knew it was kryptonite powder, which would make him powerless. He staggered back. Then a group of heavily armed men slowly emerged. One of them said, "We actually captured 2 Kryptonians. What a jackpot." Joshua, although he could fly, had heat vision, and a bioforce field, he wasn't a Kryptonian. He looked at Clark. He had witnessed Clark being attacked the moment he arrived, so how had he managed to survive? Clark was already sprawled on the ground, limp. A masked man with a gun approached, raising the butt as if intending to strike Joshua. Joshua responded with a punch. The next second, the masked man's head exploded like a watermelon, a mist of blood spreading in all directions. Clark stared in amazement, a drop of blood even landing on his face, still warm. Murder. A child could kill with such impassive emotion? Superman wasn't the only one stunned, the people around him were stunned as well. How could this Kryptonian still use his powers while surrounded by kryptonite dust? Joshua slowly ascended, his gaze sweeping over the stunned crowd. A bunch of idiots. The next second, a golden heat beam swept over them. "No, no, no, no," someone screamed, trying to flee, but the golden heat beam tore them apart. None of the people who had intended to attack escaped. Joshua blew lightly, and the kryptonite powder dispersed. Clark's strength quickly returned. As soon as it returned, he rushed towards Joshua. "How can you kill people so expressionlessly?" Superman grabbed Joshua's collar. "If they want to attack me, I will kill them." Joshua pried Superman's hands apart and threw him to the ground. Bang! A large part of the ground shattered. Joshua said, "If they don't offend me, I won't offend them. But if they do, it depends on my mood. If I'm in a good mood, I won't kill them. If I'm in a bad mood, I will kill them." Clark stared blankly at the figure in the sky. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.